Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of BangCulture podcast. Here, I'm Alex, also known as
Mike?
TheBurningFist.
I'll do
Well,
it.
take two.
Take two.
Mike really wants to be
he
known.
wants
I
to
do.
know his name.
I'm here.
I am here.
I need to change my icon to fucking All Might. I'm ready to go.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of BangCulture podcast. I'm Alex, also known as TheBurningFist. Today, I have with me Mike,
Hello, I'm Mike.
and over here's Jake.
Hey, Jacob here.
And special guest today is Jingles from YouTube.
Yeah, hello, it is I, JinglesRasco.
And today, we're going to start off by saying what we've been up to for the last week or so, and I will start it off. Then we will talk about our big topic, which is probably going to be in the description or title of pilot episode, since it's our pilot, essentially. And so I've been currently watching, honestly, a lot of cartoons and trying to watch some other things for inspiration. So I'm watching OKKO, which has been really, really fun. It's been interesting to see kind of what I would say is like a shonen anime made as a kid's cartoon, which has been really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard about that. That's interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You never described it to me in that way.
Yeah, because he starts off being like, I can't do anything, and then you get these weird glimpses of some dark hidden energy, and over time, as he goes and does bigger and bigger missions, this feeling wells up into him because he isn't very strong, normally. And then he will start to use that power and having to restrain it and understand it. It also goes into a lot of topics, honestly, about new media and mental health and interesting things like that as well. Which has been really, really interesting to see them tie that into the shonen battle thing. Because also in the beginning, you just get these battles mostly of them versus these evil robots. Trying to protect their little plaza thing that they work for, and over time they develop there's a bigger picture that they have to deal with, and it's cool.
Okay, yeah, definitely that synopsis I would assume was a shonen anime if you didn't say it's a cartoon.
Exactly. So, yeah. Yeah, right now I'm on season 2. I don't know which episode I'm on. But yeah, for the first season, they actually I almost gave up on it halfway through the first season, because the evil energy nonsense that happens with him in the first episode makes no sense to me, and actually got me really angry because he overpowers a lot of his mom and other people in the plaza that are what you have been kind of told were professional heroes. But later on, they kind of debunk a little bit of why I was angry, which was nice because it gave me more perspective on why this makes a little bit more sense, but at the same time feels weird for him to overpower them. But I think the ending of the first season kind of got rid of a lot of my worries on it, so I've been able to keep going. But yeah, that's been a lot of my time is trying to get that, and then I've watched up to the first half of the first season of Fire Force, which was fun for the most part. I like all the creature the creature designs, because they find a lot of these kind of, what would it be, burnt humanoid things.
Yeah, you
And
managed to get a little further than I did. The art style and all that's definitely probably the best part.
yeah, the art style is super good. Like even their like costumes for the Fire Force all look oddly unique for being uniforms, which is surprising. Like they made them all unique, which is like kudos for that. But yeah, at a certain point, they started to give people like power spikes essentially, where they just become overpowered for their obstacle due to what like seems like no reason. A lot of the times, and they'll explain it afterwards a bit, and then it just kind of feels weird again. So, due to pacing and power spikes all over the place, I just couldn't continue, which is really disappointing because I love Soul Eater, which is the first thing the guy who made Fire Force made, and it's my favorite thing ever. So I was like, I really want to like Fire Force, but I'm just like, the pacing for this is super not great.
Well, Alex knows why I will not watch Fire Force.
Yeah, it is due to some of those kinds of things where people have powers
that literally break the laws of the universe. But we won't talk about that because that's spoilers.
Yeah,
like my biggest issue was it was a little too shonen for me. I've kind of gotten burnt out of the whole like shonen. I don't know, like tropes. I guess most of the time, like I can handle some shonen shows like Demon Slayer or My Hero Academia, but like there's a little too many of them now.
The shonen trope is such a meme right now, but it could be so good. There's still shows that do it well. But
yeah, like
My Hero Academia in particular.
Yeah, I think that's like the shining example right now of like a good like I think the longest form so far of shonen anime that's currently running.
You know what I think?
Other than One Piece. One Piece is actually the one.
Well, I mean, that's
One Piece is perfect.
Forever. So.
One Piece is perfect. It will last forever.
Except for like some parts.
The reason why I think My Hero Academia in particular is so well received in the shonen genre right now is because it's long form. It's not like power spikes aren't there as like a middle development or some realization in the middle of a fight to overcome your opponent. These things are premeditated. You see them training, like they feel earned in a way that most other shonens don't. And also, there's a cohesive plot that is going on. There are elements that feel more real than other shonen anime as well. Like prime example, DBZ. Literally everything in that show is so fucking outlandish. I love it to death. Don't get me wrong, but at the same point in time, it's like, can you get yourself fully immersed in the world of DBZ? No, probably not. But My Hero Academia implicates real world issues if people had powers. Like, and that grounds it in a way that I don't think anybody else so far has captured. And definitely Fire Force didn't capture. Fuck, they can't even stay in the realms of physics in their own goddamn world. But
well, in the earlier episodes, actually, I would say that for the first 3 episodes, that's honestly what it did for me. Is they actually ground it, and everybody feels like there's like this weird interplay with all the things that the fire companies do and whatnot, and it really rolled together and had a lot of impact on the main character. And you felt that too, and it made you want to get like more invested in it. But it kind of just like with DBZ goes off the fucking handlebars and just into like crazy power territory where the protagonist must defeat everything he comes in contact with.
I wonder how much of that has to do with Shonen Jump as well.
Well, the thing about it is actually with the other issue I didn't say earlier, but the other issue I have with the main character where he says really cringy lines that is like, I'm the hero who's gonna save the day kind of stuff, and is playing a very like he's playing in his own mind a shonen protagonist, and it just is reflective in the later episodes going forward. That it's just like, it is just like shonen tropes.
And that's what
tropes the show.
So I got a little bit farther because I could withstand it in the first time it happens. Because the first time it happens, I hate it. Him versus Hinabi or whatever her name is,
the chick,
the pedal chick.
Yeah.
During that fight, I'm like, you're about to lose me.
The first captain he defeats.
Yeah, the first captain, like full captain he defeats. It's just like, huh. But they do show in between that episode and the next episode, and I think between there, him losing to another captain. And another captain after that. So he doesn't win versus every captain he comes in contact with, which was nice, but...
Though at least, well, in fights that like aren't plot important as well.
Well, really, Hinabi is only a little bit important, really, in the grand scheme of things. That he beat her.
Well, but I mean, like, the fight was plot important.
Kinda, I guess.
The fights he loses are like duels that like just kind of exist to make the fight happen.
Well, yeah, it depends on. I mean, really, in the long scheme, like long term, it depends on how much the nun in his company is important.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, yes, she being captured by Hinabi is kind of important to the company, but at the same time, it's just like I don't know how important she really is. Versus him trying to like versus the seventh captain. He fights the seventh captain later, who's the strongest captain of them all. He goes to basically attempt to fight him, but would clearly have lost. So at least with that, and that's to make a point. He was trying to like kill his company essentially.
Okay.
So like that,
but like right after I stopped, I think.
Yeah, that's
some of the captain got introduced, and then that's about where I stopped.
Yeah, they have the captain of his company fight him, which was amazing. Like that made me so happy to see, as much as the outcome was pretty obvious. But it was super cool. But yeah, so that's Fire Force, and then the other interesting like kind of pop culture thing that I've been listening to / watching lately is apparently at the end of last year, The Weeknd posted a new album or released a new album, and he's been putting out over time music videos that have been really like a crazy adventure into like just kind of being like an ass. Can kind of losing everything. Essentially, the way it made it sound like losing everything in his life, including like the people he cares about, and then like losing his mind. And it was a trip. And it just finished, I think, the other week. The music videos, and that's been another thing I was like looking into because I saw like a few weeks ago the first video he put out in the series, and like, oh, I didn't even know he put out a new album because it was like right before December when I was listening to all Christmas music constantly. So I'm like, I could see why I missed it. But yeah, so I was really glad to get into it because the music's pretty good. There's one song I didn't like, and that's because he uses the word like pussy so many times. I'm just like, can you stop? Like the beat, we get. Please stop. But the other songs in the list were all, I think, really solid. Especially the first one, which is "Blinding Lights." That's one of my favorite ones. But yeah.
I haven't heard any of it yet.
Oh yeah,
I'll probably give that a listen at some point.
Actually, I'm not gonna spoil the last song in it, but that one makes it feel kind of weird. I don't know if it's exactly tied together, but it really feels like it. So, But yeah, crazy. What else have I done media-wise? Oh, the other thing I did because a lot of people have been talking about Fallout 76, I think, in Wastelanders. I actually not got into 76, but I got back into Fallout New Vegas. Okay. Because it's the best one of those. I've only
see where you were going.
Yeah, there's really only one possible. Before we all left the call, including me, we all dropped out of this podcast. I pretty much finished Fallout 4. I'm not gonna go over kind of that because I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. But I got into New Vegas because I wanted to really see how well and how well it was designed and stuff, and why everybody still talks so highly about it. Because I generally forget about all the stuff that happens in it, but I know I liked it when I played it. But it was really cool in a few places that like they would have people when you're going to a certain quest area. When you're going through that area, you will find like other enemies, and in one case leading up to I think it's Nipton or something like that, you fight some bandits, some raiders, and in their inventory I noticed that they had ant meat. And I remember from playing it before that there were actually gonna be giant ants up there, so I was like, it's really neat that they had other enemies that had something to make you know that the next enemy is gonna be something really bizarre. So that was cool. Though the only disappointing thing about it is, in my memory, I remember there being a lot of them. When I played through it again, there was like 3. So that was interesting to like as a takeaway for me coming back to it. And then there was another thing I wanted to talk about, but I can't really remember. I know there's one thing, and that I want to talk about, and that's that your run speed, because they only have a walk and a run speed in this game, unlike in 4 they actually have a sprint, which I'm really used to at this point. But there's only those 2 things, and running is still feels way too slow. And I think I'm not sure if that's because I've played a bunch of 4 lately and gotten used to sprinting everywhere. But probably. Man, it feels so like I had to like run to another destination after finishing Novak's area. I was like, I'll run to this ranger station the guy asked me about, and then run back the opposite way to go to where my quest is. So I go there. That's the other thing I want to talk about, but I'll continue the story. So yeah, I ran there, did whatever they wanted me to do at that station, came back, and I'm like, going there and back. I just hit, because there's an auto run, so I hit the auto run and just kind of like sat there for a while, and then
nothing ran into you.
Yeah, nothing actually ran into me until like I got really close there, so that's good. But yeah. So the other thing there's 2 things. One, I'm happy, and it's kind of nice that that they would let me get these quests, quote unquote, from that guy, and a few other places too. I don't remember them as well. They'll be like, hey, this thing, and you don't actually get a quest for it. You just, when you go there and come back, they'll give you a reward for doing a thing they were curious about or wanting somebody to check in on. And so that was really cool to have missions like that come up, where they don't like handhold you with like a bajillion beacons. I'm also glad that if you go back to them, they'll actually tell you what they wanted you to do. Because in some games I know, like the only real recent example I can think of is in Animal Crossing New Horizon. They'll like the other characters that you get on your island will say that they would want you to give them something, but every time you ask them afterwards, they don't tell you what that thing was, and there's no way to trigger that dialogue. So if you don't remember that one time and think that they're not going to tell me again, you're just screwed.
That's the most annoying thing, because there's a billion things you could try and give them on in that game.
Mm-hmm. And
oh my god.
Yeah, so that's why one of the things I was kind of disappointed with about when I was playing Animal Crossing.
You gotta keep your detailed neighbor notes.
Everything they say, you just gotta jot it down, I guess, just in case they bring it back up.
Dude, that game is about fucking spreadsheets, I'm telling you. Like
yeah.
It's Cartoon Eve Online.
Oh god.
Oh my god. I didn't know what I was signing up for, apparently. Jesus.
Like, everybody thinks that Pokemon is actually spreadsheets the game. No, my friend. It's actually Animal Crossing.
You have yet to hear about the turnip economy.
Oh, the fucking Peaches economy.
Yeah.
Oh god.
So, yeah.
Tom Nook, man, he's running a real racket, that guy.
That he is.
I think we're getting close to the Pokemon expansions dropping.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm most excited
Yeah,
for.
the first one's in
Like,
June.
that shit. Oh man.
Yeah, June and
June.
then August. Yeah.
I want
dang.
my boy Scyther. That's all I want. That's all I've been wanting.
If only.
Oh man, is Scyther not in the game?
No, not yet.
Good lord,
Scyther
how...
Scyther
I'm surprised you didn't just quit Pokemon like everyone else did.
Fuck, dude, I was tempted. Jim did.
Over
Ekans is coming back. So you know what? Maybe.
Yo, Ekans is coming back?
Yeah, Ekans actually coming back.
Hashtag best game. 10 out of 10.
It's a snake. So backwards.
Yep. Yeah, I was... When that whole stuff started coming out, I felt bad for people because I still had all my favorites still in the game.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just like, but I feel bad because there are some people whose their favorite Pokemon aren't in the game right now. And I feel bad.
I was okay with that to a certain extent because, like, Johto, initially, they got rid of, they added a whole bunch and then you could go back to Kanto and get the Pokemon that you wanted. But, like, I like the idea that Pokemon can be region locked. Okay, I'm okay with that. That's world building and that's really cool functionally. And yeah, you might see the odd one here or there because people can trade from all over the world or whatever, and acknowledging wonder trading is the thing. But like, they introduced so many cool new Pokemon that I never would have used if they had brought all the old ones back in. You know, like Scizor would still be the best steel type or one of the best steel types in the game. Like it's him, Metagross, and fucking the new legendaries. I forget what they're called.
The Doggos?
Yeah, honestly,
Zacian and Samiseta.
Yeah, Zacian's attack stat is fucking huge. Okay, like that shit's ridiculous.
Oh no, what's nuts about them is actually their speed stat.
Yeah,
those things are fast.
Yeah,
I think they're some of the fastest speeds in the game.
Probably.
For a bulky typing as well, like that's insane.
Yeah.
But aside from that, Corviknight, I love Corviknight. Probably one of my top 10 favorite Pokemon they introduced in Sword and Shield. There's a lot of really cool new Galarian forms. I like, as much as it's a fucking My Little Pony meme, I like Galarian Rapidash. I really do.
Yo,
it's also awful. Which sucks.
It's really bad. It's so bad in stats.
I really would love to use Galarian Rapidash, but it's so bad. Its ability, first of all, is really garbage.
It has so few moves available to it that are actual stabs. Like, because for its fairy typing specifically, like that shit. It's got like what, Moonblast maybe.
I think it's a physical Pokemon as well, so you want to use Moonblast. It's got like its own unique like cutting move that's like okay.
It's a physical psychic type. What is that?
Yeah, like it's just its biggest problem is its ability, but then it's physical, and it's not it, unfortunately.
I'm also, so basic when it comes to Pokemon. Viking Meowth.
Yeah, Alex hates it. I actually kind of like it.
I hate Berserker, and I like Old Man Steel Meowth. I love old Man Steel Meowth.
So
I honestly like complete opposite with that. I don't like the weird goiter that Galarian Meowth has, but Berserker actually makes it look like a beard, so I'm more down with that.
Yeah. I just don't like. I don't like the helmet. I think it looks stupid.
It looks like. You know, in The Hobbit, when they go up against the Goblin King and he's got that neck fat, it's just that's what exactly I see.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's all I see on that Meowth.
The first time I saw it, that's exactly what I went to.
Okay.
I was like,
I likely didn't think of that. I'm glad I know.
The first thing I couldn't not think about it when I saw that, but then with Berserker, it looks like a beard, so I'm like, oh, okay.
Did they change the color a bit? Is that one of the things?
Yeah, I think
they just whiter.
Makes it look different.
I get you. But
the only thing that I didn't like about Berserker is that it wasn't Persian. Like, I would have preferred a steel type Persian over Berserker, but I'm not displeased with the design, just disappointed that we don't see gray steel Persian. Also, I'm sad they didn't come out with the evolutions that the internet has been promising us for like the last 5 years now.
And I'm sure the whole reason we didn't get Persian is because we already got a Alolan Persian. They're not going to make another regional form of Persian.
But there's already another form of Meowth, so I don't see what's the problem. But
I mean, there wasn't an Alolan Meowth.
They just keep giving
there was.
more
he had a
things,
giant head. He had.
Yeah,
I honestly.
Dark normal.
Yeah, I actually.
Alolan Persian has a giant head.
So does Alolan Meowth. It's also it's a little bit bigger, and they have like the half open eyes.
It's not nearly as derpy looking as
it's
Alolan Persian.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite Meowth by far.
I guess I never really saw
Alolan
Meowth.
Alolan Meowth.
Yeah.
I like them all.
Done so much better with the Alolan Persian. They fucked it.
You gave a giant chubby head.
It's so good. That's the thing. Like, Alolan Persian stats are actually pretty decent. It's got some nice move choices for trolling, but
one of the most degenerate teams we ever made had an Alolan Persian on it.
Exactly, dude.
It's good. No.
I watch Weedle to Needle. I don't know if you guys do, but he came up with a really interesting team that was based around Persian, using it wasn't Prankster. What was it? Fuck, I can't remember. I'll find the video and I'll link it later. But
I don't care about the meta when it comes to Pokemon. The only thing I've ever cared about when it came to Pokemon is if I liked the Pokemon's look or personality or anything like that. I would be the worst trainer in the world. I know about type matchups and that's it.
Yeah. Hey, you're doing better than me. I don't know type matchups. My favorite Pokemon is Delibird. So literally, you're doing leaps and bounds above me.
My favorite Pokemon that I looked at its stats and they're just not great. But my favorite new Pokemon from Sword and Shield is oh dang, I had the name. Because, now all I can remember is his nickname that I gave him.
That's the nickname.
I called it Bad Company. It's the little guys. Six little ball guys with shields.
Phalanx.
Thank you.
Phalanx. No. Phalanx is actually really good.
Yeah.
Don't keep on Phalanx.
Yeah. See,
I love him. What sucks about Phalanx though is that it should have been a bug type.
Yeah.
I think they were planning on it. I think they started doing it and then they backed down.
Yeah, clearly. No. But
you know who doesn't back down? Phalanx.
Phalanx never backs down. No retreat. No retreat. I love Phalanx.
I got reintroduced to Pokemon by someone who plays competitively, and so that's my whole reason for playing now.
Yeah, I don't care about shiny hunting. Honestly, some of the shiny colors are ugly.
I hate a lot of shiny colors.
I saw a shiny Turtwig and I was like, ew.
I haven't seen what that looks like, but I'm kind of glad.
I mean, everybody hates Turtwig anyway, and I feel bad.
I like Turtwig.
I mean, I do too. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I know.
Torterra is hot garbage and competitive.
Yeah.
But I still liked it as a starter,
It's neat. I mean, I barely use my starter now for Sword and Shield, but yeah.
I still use mine a decent amount, but that's just because there's not a lot of really good grass types.
Well, yeah, I got the water type, and I would rather use Ludicolo, so...
there's Shiftry,
Ludicolo!
There's Shiftry, Ludicolo, Trevenant. The starter that you get, which is... I forget its name now.
Grookey?
No, Grookey.
Yeah,
It was something ridiculous.
Intellion, Cinderace, and
that's the one I can never remember. I remember the other two.
Gorilla. Yeah, I knew. I knew it had Gorilla somewhere in it, but I forgot how.
G, but Rillaboom.
Rillaboom.
Yeah. And then aside from that, what are the big grass types? Like those were the main 4 that I think of.
Ludicolo.
With grass types?
Yeah.
Ludicolo.
Venusaur's coming back.
Venusaur and Blastoise are both coming back.
Yep, I'm super excited for them. I saw the images for their Gigantamax forms.
Yeah, G-Max.
They look super cool. I am especially fond of Blastoise's G-Max form, so that I'm really excited for.
Yeah, it's so funny because like my second favorite Pokemon of all time is Charizard, but like I still feel bad for like all the other people that love the other starters because it's clear that Game Freak is constantly pushing Charizard all the time and giving Charizard new stuff and new things for Charizard, and then Blastoise and Venusaur just kind of
he's like top 2 favorite.
You can get a Charizard in every single game.
Yeah,
every single one.
Of course,
it's true.
Yeah. So, but also back on topic. Hey, Mike, what have you been up to the past week or so?
Played Pokemon.
I was about to say.
I have been playing some Pokemon. I have been eagerly awaiting the expansion. Ever since I heard that it was announced, I am a little miffed about the pricing of it.
How much is it? I didn't see it. I didn't see the pricing.
They're like $30 a piece.
Okay.
That doesn't sound right. I swear it was like $45 for the pass or something like that.
Really?
Might be both.
I swear it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it might.
For
Yeah,
both.
yeah. I think it might be 30 each.
It was
45 for the pass.
Yeah, maybe they might have done a bundle thing like that.
Yeah, I
could
imagine.
Get both of them anyway. I might as well just do the bundle, but whatever.
Yeah, but it's not as expensive if you are planning on getting all of them. It's not another $60.
I've also been playing some Slay the Spire. I've been playing a lot of Legends of Runeterra.
Oh yeah, how's that been going?
I really like it. The Bilgewater expansion just dropped. A lot of the balancing that was so the meta before, at least because I haven't played ladder at all yet. I've been playing a lot of the just regular normal games, doing missions or whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to get a feel for the game and deck building and all that other stuff, and amassing more free stuff to fish a play set. But which is actually really difficult to do. But at the same time, I've amassed. God, I don't know, like 70 plus cards.
Yeah.
In the last 3 weeks.
And they still have you get a particular rarity card that you can get for any.
Yeah, they've got the wild cards that you can use for different rarities and stuff.
Yeah, is it on tracks? Yeah, is it a random card that you trade in for, or you pick? You pick. Okay, good.
Yeah, you can pick a card of that rarity.
So it works like Magic Arena did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the thing. Everything I've been doing on that, I compare it to MTG Arena, and like it's all extremely similar, except for the level, the progression system feels much more meaningful because you get more stuff out of it. MTG Arena gave you a bunch of cosmetic shit and forced you to buy packs.
It used to be really good. MTG Arena's progression was really good, and they added their battle pass and killed everything.
Exactly, and that's the thing that I fucking hate. But I really like the fact that Legends of Runeterra didn't go with the battle pass thing, and they just decided to do a natural.
They went the first one.
They actually just implemented daily login rewards as well.
Cool. Yeah, they had that before too. They re-added it because I played in the beta.
This was out.
Yeah. I played the beta.
Like it existed.
Maybe really not at all.
At my house sometime. Yeah. I had heard they were making other games like that. They were making the card game, but I didn't know what it was called. Like
I am
really
so hyped. I can't wait for Valorant to become public beta. I really want to try it, even though I suck at fucking shooters. And I get said that in the correct order, not I fucking suck at shooters. I suck at fucking shooters because I hate shooters. But thought I'd make that distinction. I've also been playing a lot of just League in general. I've been playing some Minecraft again.
Yeah. I'm guessing just just regular like base.
Hanging out with friends, just building some shit. Cool. And what's the other thing I've been playing a lot of recently?
I looked up the price of the pass real quick.
Oh yeah.
It is $30 for the pass for
both?
The armor and crown stuff.
Oh, so it's both for 30.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Like, I remember seeing the price and thinking it was really reasonable.
That's even better. So
that's way better. But even still, as far as DLC goes, $15 for DLCs.
Yeah, $15 for a DLC. Yeah,
it's pretty sizable DLC too.
Yeah,
that's pretty worthwhile.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. They said that the expansion
get some connection issue there, Mike. What was that?
The same number of dens as the current wild area has. And the current wild area is huge, but the next one is supposed to be smaller, but has as many opportunities to catch stuff as before.
Yeah, which is good because it means that just the frequency of them is going to be higher, so you have to run around forever finding the dens that are, active.
Exactly.
Check what?
Which I'm really excited for. But I haven't looked to see who all is going to be in the expansion yet, and mostly because I know the one that I really want to be there won't be there. But
I don't think they've released a full list yet.
They haven't, not officially, but there's been leaks of some stuff.
We'll see. Scyther is still pretty big pick.
Caesar is pretty important to the meta game, so maybe. We'll see what happens.
I mean, apparently Game Freak doesn't care. Well, I mean, Mega Charizard was pretty important to their metagame for a while, right?
Yep.
So I was gonna say Charizard itself is iffy, but
I mean, we thought that they cared until they decided to re-add Incineroar, so now we're not sure.
Man, don't remind me. Fucking Incineroar, I hate him.
I think he looks neat.
He's the pinnacle of like what fire types shouldn't be.
Oof.
There are too many.
Why is that?
Just memes. Okay, they shouldn't.
Okay.
Be memes.
Hey man, Inteleon's meme.
Allowed to be a meme because he's been around since the beginning. He wasn't made to be a meme. He became a meme.
But Incineroar is a wrestler.
Exactly. He's a fucking luchador.
But Inteleon's James Bond.
Inteleon is literally James Bond.
Inteleon is James Bond.
I'm so glad.
Cinderace is just a soccer player.
Yeah.
And fucking Rillaboom is Ringo Starr. What do you want? We're in London. We do as the British do.
I wish they had one for each of the Beatles now.
Yeah, it's true. Cinderace is not a soccer player. He's a football player.
Got him.
Reasonable.
He's the fucking David Beckham of the world,
That's right.
Also, because Jingles did post it in the chat, I will say that I like the shinies before the final evolution. I think those colors are kind of nice, but the last one I was just like, no, that's poopy.
He literally looks like a lime.
It's like that lime color that's just
no.
I don't. It feels like it clashes too hard with
the rest. That's just the regular version, but sick.
Exactly. That's why I was like, it looks like he has like a disease
malnourished,
and he needs to go to the Poké Center right now to get rid of this. Torterra, But
as far as like things as I've been watching, I've been rewatching a lot of like old sitcoms, like How I Met Your Mother and Scrubs and.
Oh man, the fact that those are now quote old sitcoms.
Oh my god, that makes it feel fucking. It really makes.
Oh my gosh.
All the
years. Really quick, there was this person that came into, I don't remember which chat it was. It was somebody's stream, I think. And they were like going off about how they go crazy at school. So these are obviously, this is a kid in high school. Is like, has to go off on their friend forever comparing Friends with The Office.
That's right. I know who that is. I remember.
And I was just all like, this is an opportunity that I don't get very often.
Yep, I remember.
So like, I just was like, my favorite thing to do is to just find something ridiculous and then just like pretend like I believe it wholeheartedly. And so I was just like, what are you talking about? They're the exact same show. I just started making like one-to-one comparisons. And I was all like, that's about a group of friends that all go to work, and some of them work in an office, some of them work nearby, some like
just people working.
This is like not stuff that I personally believe, because the two shows are very different and really shouldn't be compared to each other because their style of comedy and storytelling are so completely different from each other. But I was just all like, I feel like upsetting a teenager today.
If I cared enough about sitcoms, I would be really tempted after this to try to make comparisons to them and write a formal video essay about this, just to do it. But
yeah,
because I find that'd be fun.
Was to try and break the normal sitcom tropes.
Yeah, right? and their
British comedy thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been going through and watching a lot of like How I Met Your Mother and Scrubs, and there was another one. What was it? I didn't really watch Friends as much. I
didn't watch it at all.
So the fact that they're considered old, by the way, there's a discussion I had recently about today's children not appreciating the roots of their current music. And like nobody knows who like Whitesnake is anymore, or like Van Halen, Twisted Sister,
like 80s like hair metal.
There was an article that went out that was saying Billie Eilish doesn't know who Van Halen is.
That's the one. Yeah.
And Van Halen responded and like, yeah, of course she's not gonna fucking know. That's a generational thing. Like, we're considered dinosaurs at this point. Like, I was like, man,
people were like, Billie. How could
you? Yeah, like how could you not know these people? And I think it was actually a Jimquisition actually that got me to do it, where it's it's like
we should get Jim on the podcast,
dude. Yeah, do it.
I mean, we're big fans, but if we ever get to that point, it'd be great.
Yeah. Her references Diesel a lot in this, I imagine. But yeah,
you know what's funny? He on his video today, it was about his reaction to the trailer for Assassin's Creed.
Vikings I haven't. Vikings edition.
Vikings edition.
I can't. I need to see that. I need to watch some Vikings.
I'm really excited for that game, by the way. And he was doing his usual dry humor thing or whatever. He mentioned the fact that his videos are more or less for like a 30 to 30-year-old to 33-year-old demographic. And you're like, fuck, man, I didn't realize I was that old.
when did these years go by suddenly?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gained 4 years.
The thing I was gonna say though is it with his argument of it's not that people were really thinking about how she would or would not know these songs, like who would have introduced her to hair metal or whatever,
Right.
It's just that she didn't like the things that other people liked, so everybody else was up in arms about it, and it's like, do you think about it?
People are allowed to have different opinions,
but it should be like I wish instead people would send their favorite Van Halen songs to her instead of just being like, how did you not know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like show her why you like it, like, and maybe she'll see it.
With a lot of today's like knee-jerk response to shit, like instead of like bringing people in and showing them why stuff is good, they just attack them and be like, how could you not?
Yeah. Like you are now worse because of these things you don't know about.
Your opinions on anything is now invalid. Yeah. You didn't like this one thing that I did, and like. That's such a I don't want to say millennial mentality, but it kind of is.
It's funny because a lot of how I think about these kinds of things with how for the generation of millennials is like the uprising of how nerd culture is into pop culture and the ways that like kind of change people's reactions to things is something I weirdly think about a lot. So it's really interesting to find the elitist mentality being just like kind of overthrowing a lot of things, which did happen like in part kind of come from nerd culture. But at the same time there was a lot of like also trying to bring people into like when people would bring them in, it's like they would like unload a bajillion references and knowledge onto them.
Overwhelm them.
Yeah, exactly. Would you usually do that?
There's a flip side to that though too, which is fuck. I came across a TikTok D&D TikTok Vine or
compilation.
Yeah, and one of them was talking about how a bunch of older players don't like 5th edition Critical Role because it's bringing in a bunch of people who are like so. Oh, what did he say exactly? That they were just like they were just fans of Critical Role, and that's the only reason why they're here, and blah blah blah. And he's like, shut the fuck up! Like, these are new players that are coming to do our favorite thing. Help them, show them the ropes. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
The
golden rule.
There's some elitist gateway for older players because they've been here the longest, and like they, it's their way or their highway or whatever, and it's their game, and everybody else is ruining it. And I'm like,
like they own the thing because they are so invested into it. Yeah, because they've been so invested in it. It's like, and nobody else will get what we really us in our heyday or whatever. It's I hate it a lot.
There's no way I could ever explain how verbal, semantic, and material components work with spellcasting.
Right. Even though there's a whole fucking blurb written about it that's less than a paragraph.
Exactly. Really, what it means is that if your hands are tied or if you're gagged, you can't cast spells. That's all that means.
Or if you're out of shit, you can't cast spells because
exactly.
It takes things to make magic.
It takes things to do things.
Yeah, actually. So me and my home group, we're really into Pathfinder. We've really preferred Pathfinder for a long time, and we've kind of like not been interested in 4th and or 5th edition D&D because we were just all like, it's whatever. It's been streamlined. It's simpler or whatever. But like, we like the slightly more complicated way of playing that Pathfinder has had set for a long time, and that's how we prefer to play. And then everybody's all like 5th edition D&D, 5th edition D&D. It's the best. It's the best. I'm like, it's a different way to play. And so for the longest time, we held off on playing 5th edition D&D, and until I'd say a few months ago when people in the server that Alex and I are frequently involved in, they were interested in wanting to try out D&D. And the first thing that I thought of was, okay, let's do 5th edition because it'll be easier for them to learn and figure out and play. The really rules and information it's simpler, it's streamlined, and that's fine. That was like my first thing, because I was just all like, Pathfinder, like I believe that they could learn how to play Pathfinder. It would just be more difficult.
It's a steeper learning
start
curve.
Off. Yeah, it's a steeper learning curve, and
that's like the difference between teaching somebody who learned on 3.5 and having them go to 2nd edition. Like, right. 2nd edition is so much more complex than 3.5, and they streamlined it down perfectly.
And AD&D was something else.
Then there was that.
We can't go there, man.
That's a bit too much.
I would love to pick up a box of that one day, considering they're like redoing it now because of Stranger Things. They've been re-putting out.
Hello?
Stranger.
Oh no!
But I finally
group.
Well,
I finally purchased the player's handbook so that I can, because I know the rules are very similar, but just different enough that I need that resource to help with the kids in our group and some of the adults in our group that were playing for the first time and wanted to get that experience.
My group introduced a lot of people to D&D, like with 5th edition, but now actually we've been transitioning over where every other week we play a different game. We have 1 week that is a 5e, and then we've actually on the other week, which is going to be tomorrow, we play Call of Cthulhu. And the majority of the group has actually been dramatically enjoying Call more than D&D. At least with this particular set of players, they like that it's less crunchy. There's like less rules and stuff to it. It's a little bit more like open to role play, as well as being like grounded in a world that's more familiar, our own, except like spookier.
Spookier. I want to get into it.
Definitely really enjoyed a lot by the group.
Yeah.
I mean, D&D is so. I love D&D, and to a point, its rule set, but it is as grindy and as crunchy as the DM decides to make it. Like at the end of the day, it is their responsibility about how much rolling there actually is versus how much role playing.
Right.
Yeah, there definitely is ways to tweak it, but it's like what it's built for is kind of just different. Like D&D really is built to have that kind of like dungeon crawling, kind of questing, fantasy RPG experience.
Yeah,
right.
And so like it lends itself more to a different kind of game feel than a game like Call of Cthulhu does.
Right. And I was talking
it's
with
definitely going to vary by players a lot.
I was talking with some of my pals about the different games. And the long and short of the difference between like Pathfinder and 5th edition is 5th edition is more focused on role playing and less on rolling the dice, whereas Pathfinder is more about roll the dice and have specific numbers for very specific things.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
even then, it's still more streamlined than say Advanced D&D or 2nd edition.
Yeah. I was gonna say D&D specific, like how I think about it or have thought about it, because I've played a number of different games around the different systems, but D&D is, especially 5th edition, is kind of the best mid ground of all these things, where you can have a little bit of everything and it works really, really easily for that. It has system in it for that, but like say Fate, which is the Fate role playing system is very into a lot of role playing and less so on the fights. It also has them, you can have all these things in it, but it's has more things catered to those out of combat role playing things for systems.
Yeah, like even the in combat crunchy bits are based around like a weird system of making role play crunchy, like making rules out of your role play.
Yeah, so it's I think Fate is probably my favorite one I've played system wise. It's just super weird and interesting, I guess, for all its roles. So yeah.
I think the favorite system that I've had that's really balanced things very well is actually Starfinder. Like, believe it or not, because of the way that they were able to balance not only weapons, but also starship combat. And the only problem that I have with Starfinder is that the operator is the most busted single class I've ever seen in any game ever of all time. It can literally do anything. If you have a party of operators, there's not a damn thing they cannot do at all.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, so now to keep us moving forward on this, Jake, now that we've gotten our D&D fix out of the way, what have you been up to this week?
So mostly, when I'm not trying to like get homework done, despite the fact that I'm stuck at home with everything else I could possibly be doing other than homework, I've been playing all these remakes that have been coming out.
Oh yeah.
I started getting a really nice fix of like 30 hours of Persona 5 Royale, which, although it was really sad to throw away my 60 hours of regular Persona 5 so I could start over in Royale. It was they've really managed to kind of spice it up and really make it worth playing again, even without beating the first game.
Gotcha, yeah.
Like maybe I had just like a long enough gap between playing the 5th and playing Royale, but like it feels like they've changed dialogue in places when I'm sure they haven't. But like somehow even scenes I remember really well feel fresh, and I don't know why.
And actually, I'm pretty sure a lot of or what did you say about the dialogue? Because I've heard that actually they changed some of the dialogue. They actually redid.
Yeah, like I think some of the lines and stuff are changed, but I don't know which ones.
Yeah, so
and like it ends up feeling like almost everything is kind of new. Like the same things are happening, but they feel fresh and different than they did before.
Yeah, they might have just done like just enough to make it feel like just better.
Yeah, as well as the systems in general overall, like just running smoother. Your cat makes you go to bed less often.
Good. Oh man, I haven't.
It's time for bed.
It's time for bed. But yeah, I've been watching actually some of Royale, a Let's Play of Royale, because I have a PS4 or whatever. So I've been watching some of that, but I never actually got into watching Persona 5 because I was like gonna try at some point to play it. But at this point, I'm just gonna watch it and maybe play it at some point.
At first, Atlas was like, "Hey, guys, Let's Players, Twitch streamers, all
I remember that. Yeah,
don't show the game to anyone."
Yeah,
I'm like,
agree you're not going to show the game to anyone.
Yep, I remember that.
Sorry, Atlas, that one's not gonna fly.
Yeah, nobody did. They just kept backing off slowly.
And then like the first day, like
didn't they?
There was already like every single boss defeated, no damage.
Oh my god! Wow. Yeah. Nice.
I am only 30 hours into Royale though because I immediately dropped it to start playing the Final Fantasy VII remake at 9 p.m. on launch night. But it digitally, had it pre-installed, everything good to go, so I could hit up that launch button as soon as 9 p.m. hit.
Yeah.
And it was pretty amazing.
Good. Yeah.
It was overall kind of everything I would want it to be.
Yeah.
Really.
Like in most ways, like I could see, like it's not a perfect game, but it's exactly the kind of game I feel like it should be.
Interesting.
But I mean, I could argue from kind of at least what I know of from Final Fantasy VII. I never played it in its entirety. I might have played it a little bit back in the day, but I highly doubt it. But yeah, I wouldn't say that Final Fantasy VII is just a perfect game either. So
yeah, that's true.
It's the perfect nostalgia.
How could you say that?
Oh, I dare. Yeah, it's definitely a time capsule like of the time. Those kinds of graphics that were only for like a window in history, I guess. So
yep. Yeah. Because even the very next game had completely different graphics.
Yeah. So
yeah, 7 was their first time doing 3D, if I remember correctly.
Yep. 6 was still 2D pixels.
And by 8, they really figured things out.
Same time Ocarina did.
7, I think.
Let me see.
Yeah, someone else.
I feel like 7 was a little later than Ocarina.
Oot.
Because Ocarina was like one of the first like good 3D games at all.
Well, it was like that one, Mario 64, and Donkey Kong Adventure.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64.
No, Donkey Kong 64, yeah.
Mario 64 was like
Donkey
the
Kong
first
64.
Which apparently a lot of people hated. I really loved it.
Donkey Kong 64?
No, Donkey Kong.
Oh, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64.
Because the angles. And shit.
Yeah, the camera and stuff was.
Well, I mean, Crash Bandicoot had the same problem.
Yeah, a lot of people also don't like Crash Bandicoot. So I mean, cameras in games, especially around that time, were a big talking point. Honestly, on most of them, I remember watching Tech TV or X-Play back in the day, and then always talking about that stuff because that's not like how I got like into games. Was really watching that.
Final Fantasy VII came out a year before Ocarina of Time.
Oh, okay. Dang! So yeah, okay, good. So for Final Fantasy VII standpoint, it's like they had.
Yeah, they were one of the first.
So yeah. So it makes it like nice to know that within the span of one game, they really chiseled out those rough edges.
Because man, that game could cut your eyes if you're not careful.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Just Cloud's hair alone.
Cloud's hair. Like,
watch out for those pointy bits.
Although his hair still was really sharp.
I think that's the reason why the Buster Blade is designed the way it is, and I love it for it. Like that's it's one of the most iconic weapons in video game and anime and pop culture in general. Like you put that sword on your wall, somebody in a group of friends is going to know who that is. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Except like maybe Ethiopia, but they don't have internet there.
I feel like it's a surprisingly simple design comparatively to some other iconic swords from video games.
Because it had to make do with having lower amounts of polygons. So
it's literally a giant razor blade.
Yes.
So I feel like there's really got to be some credit given to the designers that they took a really simple looking blade, but you can tell that's the Buster sword right away.
Yeah, it's because its silhouette is so unique again, because no other swords are shaped like a giant razor blade. Like not even
it's just not practical. You shouldn't do it.
But they are doing it, and everybody knows it, and people like it. Like so, it's just like, oh, gotta give it to them.
It's less practical for the size, not because of the shape of the blade necessarily. Like that thing
that adds to the size. The shape of the blade it just adds more bulk to the sword.
Also, with it just being a giant blade, like it had, like they couldn't, make like a sophisticated handle. They could only make a blade.
I want to say something to the math on that once. I think it might have been in a death battle, and like they did the math and size of the blade.
How heavy it would be
based off its surface area. It weighs like upwards of 200 plus pounds.
Yeah.
I'm sure like Man at Arms has made one.
Oh for sure. Yeah. So they would know for sure.
I'm pretty sure that was when they were like testing it off. They were like two people holding it, and then one of them drops it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and they drop it. Yeah, I remember.
That's exactly right.
So yeah. But yeah, did you want to talk a bit about like what the ending stuff is?
Yeah, so I don't know whether Mike or Jingles like are aware of the ending.
I am very aware.
I am very
vaguely aware.
I'm not. I'm pretty aware. I've seen some things that talks about the ending, but I haven't witnessed the full ending itself. Just a lot of what it is.
I just saw it a little while ago, and I'm sure I'll see it again
tomorrow. You were saying,
yeah.
So it's certainly something else. I was trying to beat the game because like it was another Friday was our game night, and like I needed to get it beaten so we could play. And it's like I'm right at the end. I'm escaping from Midgar. I'm like, okay, like I just gotta like get through this bike section, and the game's probably gonna end like right after that.
Right.
And then I get to the end, and all hell breaks loose. And ghosts take over Midgar, and like it opens up this spooky portal, and it's like, okay, make sure the entire party is ready before you go through the portal because something's gonna happen.
Because something's spooky over here.
Start playing Kingdom Hearts.
Honestly, you're more right than you're wrong.
It's been showing up in glimpses throughout the entire journey. It was bound to happen, guys.
It's very Kingdom Hearts.
That's
like no joke. It is like it's very Kingdom Hearts.
The same thing could happen in Kingdom Hearts at some point, and no one it would make sense. It would make more sense in Kingdom Hearts than it made in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
What ends up being is like you're fighting against these ghosts, which are the embodiment of like the force that stops you from changing destiny. And so you have to like end up defeating this giant super ghost that is the like conglomeration of all these other smaller ghosts, so that you're allowed to move forward and change destiny.
Yep.
And it's this giant like fight in space. Amongst like ruins of the highway and stuff, and it was certainly climactic. It was a fun like set piece to play through. But it seems like they're kind of setting the game up to change, like to where they're not going to be entirely beholden to the way the original story went.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's.
Well, there's also been a lot of like stuff on Twitter recently how maybe it's not going to change too much. There's been some statements and stuff made.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I've heard, well, obviously speculation from other people who were really invested in Final Fantasy overall, and they're saying that it probably sounds they're going to do something pretty similar, probably, which again kind of irks me in a bit, but where they're going to have mostly the same, and then probably like the ending of the next game, chapter, whatever you want to call it, is going to be different again, and they're going to keep the same kind of formula, or a chunk of it will be changed somewhere between either. It could be at the beginning, honestly, and then it kind of stays the same for the rest of it. I'm not entirely sure. But
I know a lot of people are feeling it might be like Earth-based changes, where like maybe she won't die soon.
Yeah. So the crazy thing I heard is actually that that somebody looked into some other novels and stuff, and were saying that basically that Sephiroth is living through like people's memories of him and like knowing of him, and that's how he keeps popping up. And they were actually saying that actually Cloud's gonna die and not Aerith, and you have to beat the rest of the game with Aerith.
That would actually be really cool.
Yeah,
I
feel like there's no way that's actually what they're gonna do, though, especially with those newer statements.
Yeah,
I feel like there's no way that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that was I think either a couple days ago or last week, I forget. But yeah, if there's been more statements about it, who knows? But at the same time, if they go through all the same places and you get all those same story beats, but with Aerith and maybe the remnants of Cloud's memory or something in the Mako, that could be something they could do. But again, I don't know. That's me gleaming from memories or from knowledge of other people.
But what if just this one time they went a different way with it, and they were like, this is about to happen. He has a flashback of it. Gank Sephiroth instead.
Just kill Sephiroth.
Right there. That's
no. Cloud becomes Sephiroth.
Cloud becomes Sephiroth.
See, and one crazy thing is like that totally maybe could happen because of the other thing that is like also sort of true that matters a lot is that Zach Fair maybe is alive now.
No, he definitely is alive now.
Yeah.
Well, there's been talk that maybe they just haven't shown him die yet, so like. In the beginning of the next game, like somebody might finish the flashback.
They showed the ending of Crisis Core, and he's super alive.
Yeah,
I know, like he's probably alive, but like
I'm curious. So either Cloud or Zach becomes Sephiroth. Got it.
So
and either could too, because they both have.
What if all of three of them fuse together to become a super person?
What if they all fuse together to make some kind of weird giant amalgamation entity like you fought at the end of of this first part, and they become full Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah.
Will they become what, Mike?
What if
they become a dragon
out of the sky?
What if they all got Norded?
What if they suddenly everyone gets Norded?
Please no.
They defeat. We'll say like you defeat like the Ruby weapon in the next part, and then you get the Keyblade. Yeah, the
Keyblade. Ultimate weapon, Keyblades.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
and then Gamora laughs at us.
He already is.
It's Kingdom Hearts again.
He's laughing at you while he's rolling in your money. What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, you guys didn't open up, or you didn't get the physical copy, open it up, get that little, the paper thing, for the title, and peel off the sticker saying Kingdom Hearts under it?
Yeah.
Everyone was upset there was no Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts, so we added Kingdom Hearts to our Final Fantasy.
There you go.
Nothing in the rules against that.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
So yeah. There's a lot of like.
That's the real plot twist.
Yeah.
Sora comes in, and ganks Sephiroth becomes Sephiroth.
But regardless of what they do end up changing, I'm pretty on board. Like, I'm not upset they're going to be changing the story. I think like that's kind of a fun way to go through a remake of the game.
Yeah.
I think it's necessary, right? With a game series that old, like. Well, a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people didn't really take that well to Final Fantasy 15, and I really liked it, but that's like the only one I've actually played.
A lot of people did not like Final
It
Fantasy
wasn't
15.
that good.
I was.
Really?
15
15. 15
was good.
15
was good. I liked 15.
Yeah, 15. A lot of people there was a fair amount of people who didn't like it due to either weird character design choices or some of the ways you go about things.
Just another emo Sasuke clone. So.
How could you not like road tripping with the boys?
No. There are people. Cool. Yeah, a lot of people do. It's funny because there's a very very big split of people who like that like road trip, just go and do whatever kind of thing, and learn as you're going. Because the other big thing, and the reason why I like that it goes so slowly, and that's why most people hate it, because it actually progresses kind of slowly, is because you get to go with them through their journey of becoming pampered kids into actually battle hardened fighters. And
exactly.
It's super awesome to see a game tackle that kind of stuff, but a lot of people didn't like it.
Ignis learns how to fight without his eyes, dude. That's insane.
I know.
I still need to play the DLCs. I need to get and play the DLCs.
I don't think there was much of an explanation for that either, was there?
It was during his DLC. Well, during his DLC, you find out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have to buy the DLC to find out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it was. So it's during the. I'm just gonna call it a water kaiju. It's the sea serpent.
Leviathan. He loses his vision during Leviathan.
Yeah.
And then later he learns to see with life force or something like that.
With the Mako.
He learns to see with the Mako energy.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I have a video that this guy made that was talking about Final Fantasy 15 and why he finds it disappointing and stuff. But you guys can watch that whenever you feel like it.
Really? He didn't like
I really like Super Eye Patch Wolf.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of my favorites. But you hear his explanation, and I think you'll be like, okay, I can see where you're coming from when it comes to that.
There's definitely stuff it's not a perfect game.
Yeah, but
especially after the drought we had, the 4.13s, it was definitely a step in the
all of them being bad.
You guys have Final Fantasy 13, 13 again, 13 another time.
We're gonna get it right this time, I swear.
Where
13 returns.
Revenge of the 13.
Revenge of the 13.
The 13, A New Hope.
A new 13. The 13 Strikes Back. Return of the 13.
As my red anime anger vein continues to grow over my body.
The 13 rises.
God damn it, I hate it.
The
rise of 13.
A brief moment about how Star Wars has gone to shit.
I'll take at least fun.
I'll take a moment. I don't care.
The new movie was fun.
We've been talking a lot about Star Wars on my other podcast, and I've been a long and deep Star Wars fan for a very long time.
Me too.
There was stuff in my mind when going into the newest movie where I was just like, if they do this, I'm going to be upset. And then they did it, and I was just all like, okay, they've done it. Now I'm going to put myself in the mindset of just letting it happen. And then when I put myself in that mindset, I had a good time watching it. It's not a good movie, and there's a lot of problems with it that make me mad. But I enjoyed myself.
That's kind of where I'm at too. That's kind of exactly where I came out of it. It's like, was this good? No. But could I have a good time watching it? Sure. Yeah. It was fun.
I can definitely have fun ripping it apart, in my mind as I'm watching it physically and just.
Hey, Mike. Can I call you out or should I not?
Go for it.
Okay, when you first came back from watching it, you actually said you liked it, and then afterwards, you came back being like, yeah, it was pretty good. I enjoyed watching it, and then I was like, because I didn't go and watch it. Instead, I watched some reviews, and one of them had just a long form discussion going over a lot of points, And it's like, yeah, no, a lot of these parts actually don't make sense. A lot of things they do are kind of fan servicey. And actually, this actually is another big thing that tied into the big topic we're gonna have later of them putting in other stuff in another podcast. Sorry, another time we'll talk about this. But yeah, putting in other things from previous episodes of Star Wars into this one, just to kind of make a lot of people be like, oh yeah, that thing, like this, these feelings. We are Star Wars. We do the things Star Wars do, and it's like
we do the Star Wars now.
But you're just doing what they've done. You're not being Star Wars continued.
Right. You're not continuing the story. You're rehashing. But so
even when it doesn't make sense.
Right. Exactly.
My favorite thing with like the new Star Wars movie was I saw a full spoiler. Like I was like in a meme Facebook group I'm on. Like it was a picture and like laid out every spoiler. I'm like, haha, how crazy! Yeah. What a funny meme.
Yeah, nobody. This can't be real.
I go to see the movie like the next week. I was like, wait a minute.
Oh no! It was all true.
It all happened.
No. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's actually one of the funny points that I actually make to myself when thinking about spoilers, and because I listen to a lot of things about like spoiler culture and stuff. Occasionally, it'll come up, and I at least for me, when I actually go and see like or usually not see them directly, but a lot of times when people like talk about something that is a spoiler, I usually am just gonna continue going as if that might not exist, and not let it kind of ruin the experience or try to like make me think less of the context of the movie, unless I'm like I want to know the ending just to know it, so I could not have to watch it. But if something just kind of glimpses my eye or whatever, I just keep going, and I'm just like, whatever, it could not be real. Like, who knows at this point? Fucking with Photoshop stuff. So that's just something I wanted to say.
Yeah.
As far as like episode 9 goes, though, there were parts of it that I did like. But then the more I thought about it, just after the fact, I was like, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, if you take more than 10 minutes, after the movie.
I believe I remember also saying, as a movie, it was fine. it was a movie.
It was a movie.
Even as far as movies go, like removing it from Star Wars stuff, there's still some big problems.
It's just a plot, like it's like a lot of weird plot elements.
Like even pacing wise and plot wise and stuff like that, there's still.
It manages just to come off as like an action movie with a good budget and like a good soundtrack. Like
it has polish. It has good polish. It just has no substance. Of any kind.
The visual effects are nice.
Yes, visual effects.
The fights are fun and like it looks pretty.
Like I loved the action scenes and like all of the harkening back to the Death Star scene in episode 4. Sorry, was it 4? Yeah, it was episode 4, where they first showed the Death Star and all that. And like when they finally revealed the actual First Order fleet, I thought that was really cool. I really liked that. The destroying of the comm tower to like shut everything down, that made a lot of sense. Because like the whole Empire shtick is that they have this big, massive, impenetrable dick that they're about to fuck the universe with, but it has one glaring weakness.
Is it a vent?
Yeah, it's a vent. That's exactly this time it's a tower.
I gotcha.
And I was like, okay, that sort of makes sense. Because there's no other way for them to leave the system. And like, if they ever did manage to get out of the system, boom, everything's gone. Like that is their one way out. But this time they had a backup plan. It wasn't as glaring of a literal hole.
Because really all it is too. It's like, still with the tower. Oh no, turn on the other tower.
Like,
hey guys, don't worry about that tower. We got another tower. It's right over here.
It hurts.
It's on our ship.
Yeah, it was on the ship instead. It's like, the ship has its own tower. Like, we'll need them from this ship instead of the ground tower.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys ever notice how shielding varies in those types of ships as well?
Absolutely.
Like one of them will be so heavily shielded that they need another fucking cruiser to blast through it. But then there'll be one that you just find that you can fucking blast through with a fighter.
Yeah, it's easy.
Like, come on, man, really?
Just use an X-wing. It's easy.
Always use X-wing.
Oh god.
Just throw Poe at it. Poe is the best pilot.
Exactly.
God no.
Oh my god.
But yeah.
So
was there anything else?
That I've been doing. Not
week.
too much. One of my roommates is like really big on watching like classic TV shows right now. This week I kind of worked through a lot of like the big shows of like the last decade or so. Currently, we're watching The Sopranos, which I've actually never seen before.
Oh, nice.
Sopranos is actually really good.
Sopranos was like Game of Thrones back in the day.
Yeah. It was.
We watched Breaking Bad, and then we watched Dexter until it stopped being good.
Okay,
And then now we're watching The Sopranos.
Honestly, it does take a little while before it starts going bad, Dexter.
You can get like a few, you can get like 3 good seasons or so out of Dexter.
Gotcha.
Was it only 3? I thought there was more like 6 or 7.
It has 3.
No, 3 good ones.
Like,
yeah, 3 good ones.
Yeah,
I never actually watched the whole lot of it.
I know a lot.
Seen, like an episode or 2.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about it back when it was like first airing for the first few episodes.
Yeah, it was really big back when it was going.
Yeah.
I think the show that I watched that was kind of like that was New Moon, the vampire detective or whatever.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I never watched any of those.
I never watched it either.
I stopped watching those kinds of things like right around when those started. Like,
I like the main character kind of reminded me a lot of like Nicolas Cage for some reason.
So zany.
But no. That's he wasn't zany at all.
Okay.
He just had the look. Like,
he
reminded me of Nicolas Cage in The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
That's what he reminded me
of.
Oh man, that's a movie.
Right? It's a good movie. I like that movie. Unabashedly, I will say I like that movie.
That's cool. I've talked about this in my other podcast, and it's a mantra that I live by. It's totally cool to love things that you know aren't good, but you love them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like, I will 100% respect anybody that's like, this movie is trash. I love this movie. I'm like, that's cool. I'm down with that.
I can definitely say that there's a lot of anime that I'm on board with like that. It's like, this anime is objectively not good, but like it's a lot of fun to watch.
I believe that.
Any like that.
There's so much anime that's like just not great.
Especially like your servicey anime or like
anything that's usually really servicey.
Well, like the really generic animes can end up being
so many generic animes these days. Thank you, Sword Art, for making things bad.
I hate it. Oh, that's something I forgot to watch actually for this episode. But
I watched Sword Art for this episode actually.
I was gonna do Log Rising.
I watched the first episode of Sword Art earlier today.
Okay, good. So at least you came prepared. I watched other things for preparation for today, so yeah, we'll get to those later. But yeah, was there anything else?
I think that's it for me. So let's see what Jingles.
So Jingles, what you up to?
Oh man, I've been DMing 3 different groups.
I've been a part of 2 of them,
and Alex was part of 2 of them.
It was fun.
Yeah, just because like earlier in the year,
actually, it was last year.
Yeah, last year. Excuse me, late last year.
Yeah.
Because this year's still kind of young.
Yeah,
about halfway there.
It's been busy. It's been pretty awful, but it hasn't been that long.
It's been.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the subject of like Pathfinder and D&D came up in groups that I'm involved with, and everybody was all like, "Oh man, that'd be so cool to just try it out." And I'm like, I'm the kind of person that I was like, I want to let them be exposed to it, see what they think about it for the first time, and then if they want to keep playing, they can. The entire point was to get people interested so that they can, if they have other friends and stuff or a group that they'd like to create themselves, they can keep going with. And that was just to give people the experience so that they can be all like, oh, I've tried D&D, it's fun, I would like to keep going. I'll buy the books, I'll buy the starter pack, like whatever, I'll buy dice sets, which everybody knows as soon as you have your first taste of D&D, then you're just online buying dice sets forever.
True.
I'm proud of myself. I only own one dice set.
Same. I actually haven't fallen into the trap of buying dice.
Yeah,
I unfortunately have.
Yeah, Mike has a ton of dice sets. I have three. I have three now. One of which I think was a gift from actually Smiter. I think he got me a dice set. If I remember.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, and then.
Or you bought it yourself.
Yeah.
Either way, you came to visit and you got a dice set.
Yeah, it was a souvenir of sorts.
Yes.
But yeah, and then Mike got me the Ravnica set of dice.
Very cool. Yes, but two of the groups were 5th edition D&D, which Alex was involved with both of those, and the other one was Pathfinder, and I've never DM'd before. My brother Smiter, he's the one that does the DMing in our group, and we've done a few one-shots, and we have a long-running campaign that we're involved in right now, which is a Pathfinder campaign. Because we play Pathfinder over here.
This is a Pathfinder house.
That's a Pathfinder house.
This is a Pathfinder house. We play Pathfinder in this house. Which is funny because like the joke that's been going around is the book that I got yesterday that I have sitting on my desk that I have my hand on right now. My roommate Josh and my brother Smiter, they're just all like, hey, could you like maybe put that book someplace else because it's stinking up the apartment.
Wow.
It's just I know. It's just that we have because we've been pretty strong about like we're not interested in getting into 5th edition D&D. The biggest reason for that is because we don't want to buy a whole bunch of books again, especially considering you guys have seen our collection of Pathfinder books.
Yes.
We've sunk a lot of money into Pathfinder. 5th edition is essentially we would be playing the same way anyway. So yeah. And so anyway, I did a one shot for the 3 different groups. I used, don't tell anybody, it was a Pathfinder module that I had converted into 5th edition for the purposes of the 5th edition groups, and then I just did regularly for the Pathfinder group.
So I'm kind of curious, how did you decide, like, why were the one group that was in Pathfinder, why were they playing Pathfinder?
Because I kept hyping up Pathfinder, and the group that played the Pathfinder, they were all adults, and so I was confident that they wouldn't struggle too hard with the math and creating characters and stuff like that, and they already had like a really strong idea of what they wanted, whereas the 5th edition group was mostly kids, and I didn't want to. Well, one group was mostly kids, the other group was adults, and I didn't want to like bog them. They're still like young. Everyone was younger than me in the 5th edition groups, whereas in the Pathfinder groups, 2 of them are older than me, and so I was like, I felt because I hype up Pathfinder a lot, and especially on the other podcasts that I'm involved with. What was just like we had a gaming episode where we talked about gaming and stuff like that and tabletop gaming, and I was like, I want to talk about Pathfinder because it's a big part of our life. And they were all like, let's play Pathfinder one time, and I was like, okay. So we have all the books, and we just played Pathfinder, and we used Roll20.net because it's free and it's online. It just keeps track of everything for you.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so we were able to all play together, and I just used the Pathfinder module for it, the beginning Pathfinder module, and I did that. The final group to play, we played on Saturday last week, and we streamed that on my channel. And so the stream of it is up on my channel, and it's so much fun, and I really, really want to play with as many people as I can again.
Yeah.
Preferably on like not as big a groups as we did have, because we had really big groups.
We had what, seven people in one.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one? Like
it was seven in both groups, but
okay.
one of the groups had one of the people were playing a wizard that had a familiar, and the familiar kind of counted as an 8th person.
Yeah. It had its own turn, I think.
Yeah.
So
yep. It has its own initiative and stuff like that. If you know the spell Find Familiar, it's in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
Which is one of the other big reasons why I purchased the player's handbook, was so that I could have access to the difference between Pathfinder and 5th edition and their spells.
Yeah.
Which their spells are similar, but just different enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, like 5e familiar doesn't have its own initiative. It goes immediately after you. And...
Oh, really?
Actually, 5e, the rules that I read, it rolls its own initiative, but I could be wrong.
I thought it was like most bets where its turn is immediately after you.
Well,
like,
actually,
a lot of players do have it that way.
Yeah, for Rangers with their pet, it actually it goes as your bonus action.
Yeah, most pets have their initiative immediately after you, but they can only take actions if you spend your bonus action to tell them to do something.
Or I don't think it goes after you. It just they act for your bonus action, because we have a ranger, and I think I had to reread their rules many times.
Yeah, rangers are very interesting.
But also
that was one of the things with
actually Hunter is good.
Yeah, Hunter is pretty good. With the groups for specifically the kids, I was like, no spellcasters for your first characters, just to keep things more simple and stuff like that. Yeah. So let's see here. Find familiar. The familiar acts independently of you, but it always obeys your commands. In combat, it rolls its own initiative and acts on its own turn. The familiar can't attack, but it can take other actions as normal.
I want to double check something though, because that's with the Find Familiar spell and not in normal wizards familiar, as far as I know. But
that is the same as a normal.
Is it the same? Okay.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure that's
the same. I haven't looked at familiars for wizard. I only look at
Pathfinder.
Nobody plays wizard.
You're thinking of.
Hey, I play wizard. Just no familiar.
Just no familiar.
Yeah, I play divination wizard and just loved him.
Fucking wizard class ever.
You thought you were gonna roll? You're gonna make a roll this attack? No, you just get to fumble.
That's right.
Man, you're that guy. You're the power gamer.
That's right.
Only when I play wizard.
So
this is so good, so funny.
I've been watching my brother and my roommate both play Final Fantasy VII Remake separately, and just kind of gauging how they're feeling about it. There's been some interesting moments, especially my roommate Josh really loves the original and actually replayed it before the remake came out early last year. And so that was all like kind of fresh in his memory when going into the remake. My brother Smiter never played the original, doesn't have much of an attachment to the original, was very interested in the remake. So I've been watching them do that and kind of watching what they think about it and stuff like that. I started watching about a couple months ago, for the very first time Kill la Kill. I never watched it before. I've been loving it. I think it's incredible.
I really need to finish Kill la Kill sometime.
You should. It's so good.
It's very. So I knew that Studio Trigger. I've always respected their artistic prowess in animation. I've always been super impressed with things that I've seen. So watching Kill la Kill for the first time, I've just been like, this is animated beautifully, and the colors are amazing, and a lot of the design for a lot of different stuff is really amazing looking and so unique, and I loved it. I feel like because I never gave Kill la Kill the chance when I was younger, back when it first came out. And the reason for that is I was really getting super tired of like just fan servicey anime that had no substance to it. And to me, that's what it looked like, right? And honestly, we can all agree it kind of presented itself like that as another one of those, like, it's fan servicey, like from
fan
like
service action,
the fan servicey action from the like commercials and stuff like Battle Royale, Battle Vixens, other animes where like girls are getting super naked but also fighting and stuff
Freezing.
Those are really big in that time too, like Freezing, Queen's Blade,
Oh God,
Ikutusen.
I remember the second episode of Queen's Blade so vividly. It's
I just don't remember. I've never seen Freezing. I watched I think a couple episodes of Queen's Blade maybe, like, but I don't really remember them at all. I remember a couple characters.
I just remember they all existed and there was many of them.
Right. But the long and short of it was like that kind of stuff was just tiring me out from anime.
And it was very like pervasive, I feel, in just the community and culture of anime at that time. Or like right before really Kill la Kill came out, and so coming into it afterwards was kind of I don't think this is gonna be a good show.
Right.
As much as it is Trigger, which is
and so that was like the feeling that I had back in the day. But then my brother Snyder was all like, but it's actually really good. And there's a ton of heart and like it's written really well and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, I'll check it out. And we've been watching it together. And I've just been all like, this show is brilliant.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so much deeper than I would have given it credit for when I was younger. And it's, like I said, the animation's outstanding. We've been watching it dubbed because the dub is really good.
It actually is.
I love it, honestly. I love that dub. Like, I watch specifically things in dub. For any viewer that doesn't know, I have a hard time reading, so I prefer dubs.
Yes.
And so I can definitely say, like, to the merit of like certain animes having bad dubs, and definitely don't go into for the dubs. But like Kill la Kill for sure was one of those animes that's like top tier. Well, even Gurren Lagann, top tier dub. So it's like
I've heard good things about Gurren Lagann as well, and I still
have you
watched.
You haven't? Oh my God! You have to see Gurren Lagann.
Right now, you're still with the Gurren Lagann profile picture.
Right there.
The thing is, guys, is that I was so burnt out with anime that good.
Gotcha.
I didn't give a chance.
After Kill la Kill. For sure.
I pretty much got to watch all the Trigger stuff, probably even Inferno Cop, if I'm honest.
I would actually
worth at least a little bit of watching.
I would say the first 2 episodes, but actually, honestly, I would say though, after Kill la Kill, for the like last 2 or 3 shows of theirs, I don't actually like them very much, which I feel sad to say because I'm a fan of both Kill la Kill and Kisniver. I don't like Inferno Cop at all, but that's because it's not my thing.
Kisniver wasn't good.
Kisniver wasn't good. Darling the Franxx.
I think they didn't write it though. I think they didn't.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
These are all shows they didn't entirely do, if I remember correctly. Someone else had a hand in it as well.
Probably,
and the Franxx.
Yeah, possibly. But at the same time with Darling the Franxx, I have heard that like a review for it because I was really interested because I was like, I kind of want to get back in anime. This is like right after I started watching One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, and I was like, I like those 2 shows like really like put me back into the mindset of like watching anime again. So I was like looking into that because it's also coming out around that time as well, and it's like I could see myself as a 12-year-old or like 14-year-old really liking this, but right now it's not as good. Like I don't feel like as an adult I care about it at all or whatever. So I think I watched the first episode or so a while back, and I just couldn't. I didn't get into it either. I was just kind of like But for those shows I didn't like it. Promare is apparently super awesome. I haven't watched it yet.
Its DVD is like just about to come out in the West, and I still haven't watched it yet either.
It's technically on YouTube. You can buy it already.
Oh, it is now? Okay.
Yeah, so
gotta watch it soon then.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's really, really good.
I'm waiting.
And actually, like the night before last, I sat down and I watched their new show for this season.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Brand new Animal. It was actually I enjoyed it. I binged off the 6 episodes that were available.
Yeah.
There's no legal way to watch it currently because it's in Netflix jail.
Netflix
jail.
Make me so mad.
But yeah.
Can we all talk for a second about the oppressive nature of Netflix's business model and just like how dominant it currently is in terms of like streaming services?
Yeah. I mean, like that's fine with me. I just don't like Netflix jail.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if they win streaming capitalism, but like.
And even then, like some of the shows for like YouTube or not YouTube, Jesus, Amazon has some really interesting shows that are doing well for them. So not too bad, but it's like there's a handful of good streaming services like that.
But I still don't think it can quite compete with the numbers that Netflix puts out.
Yeah,
it's not as big. Money. Yeah, but it's not. Its streaming arm isn't as big as Netflix because that's all they have.
Right.
So it's like if any
Amazon overall is winning.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like
that's just because Amazon is.
it has too many big important friends.
Google.
The streaming rights here in the United States are so messed up. It's ridiculous. I was told I have a friend that lives in Germany, and she's been watching all of the Ghibli films because they're all available to her on Netflix. Whereas we don't get that because HBO Max is supposed to be
has the rights for it here,
premiering soon, and it's supposed to be where you're supposed to be able to watch all of them. And it's just so much weird stuff going on. I just want to watch Ghibli, and there's a bunch of other shows that you can't watch right now here in the United States without a VPN.
This whole exclusivity thing is kind of annoying. We're just you have to pay $10 here, $10 here, $10 here.
To each individual site to get all the stuff. But I mean, it's either that or you pay $200 or something for it all on through cable providers. So
yeah, exactly.
I would rather do the modular choice.
$30 than $220. Yeah. For a bunch of extra channels I'm not gonna watch.
Exactly. So it's
I just wish instead of it doesn't have to be either or. I feel like there should be more just cooperation. Have one or two streaming sites and that dominate most things instead of every single service having their own. Does Disney really need one? Does HBO really need their own?
Well, the funny thing is though, of course Disney needs to take all the money. It's just vampire everybody. But I mean, with at least what I've seen with Hulu, you can get most of those kinds of services all packaged together for maybe $25-$30. Like HBO, Showtime, Disney Plus, Hulu.
You could get Verve.
You get Verve, they have a bundle thing as well. So you can get it all for a decent amount of money. Again, versus the $200 for a cable provider. So it's not bad. They bundle it all up and whatnot.
This isn't really that worthwhile. I haven't gone digging into how it's done in a while as far as the right ways to buy everything is.
I just looked recently because I just got Hulu the other month, and I was looking at all their different variety packaging things, and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't get any of them. I just got base Hulu with no ads. So
in our thing for us in our house, we have 3 streaming services, which is Verve and Netflix and Disney Plus. Those are what we have because I am a Disney baby and will always be a Disney baby and will
even when you're a man.
Even when I'm a man, I'm still a baby.
I'm still a baby.
We have Crunchyroll, Hulu, Netflix. I feel like that's it.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So. I technically have access to Disney Plus through my Verizon contract, but I'm not using it currently, and I stopped watching anything on Netflix or
Did you watch The Mandalorian?
I have not.
He hasn't used it yet. I've been telling him about it for since he's got it. I've been like, man, come on, we should watch Mandalorian and Clone Wars sometime.
The only reason to not watch Disney Plus right now is Mandalorian is over if you've already seen
it. But only then.
Well, season 2 is being worked on.
Yeah, true. So I mean, it's not over.
Disney Plus again.
From what they said.
Yeah,
so,
maybe we'll see. You will see. But yeah.
That puts it in a really weird spot in the timeline, though. Like, as far as like the universe goes.
I think it's
Well, it all depends.
Yeah, we'll see. It seems like she's older.
The Mandalorian, they established that it takes place like almost immediately after Return of the Jedi and the fall of the Empire.
Oh, okay.
So during the rise of the First Order.
Yes, I don't know how long. I don't know how long it took the First Order to rise, because obviously the Force Awakens takes place 30 years after Return of the Jedi. So,
right.
But it's like very, very closely after the fall of the Empire. So, and the rise of the New Republic.
Okay. Interesting. So she makes it all the way through there.
If what they're showing is, or if she does show up, then that's what that suggests.
Interesting. Okay.
But I love Disney Plus because I never got to finish Clone Wars, and now I'm completely caught up and watching the final season, and I've been loving that.
Have you watched any of Rebels?
I haven't seen Rebels yet. I wanted to finish Clone Wars first and then watch Rebels.
Okay.
I've heard mixed things about Rebels.
I personally really like Rebels.
Yes. I feel like I will really like Rebels, but I probably will. I don't think I'm gonna like it as much as I'm love Clone Wars, and I love The Mandalorian. I love both of those shows a lot.
I'll tell you, don't necessarily think of Rebels as like a subplot to the main story. Just think of it as like an expansion, kind of like how the Obi-Wan books were, and like all the expanded universe
side stories.
I definitely try to do that with anything that's not directly involved with the main series.
Right.
Which it's been funny because the newest episodes of Clone Wars, I believe that the last 2 will be coming out tomorrow, and then on Monday will be the final episodes will be released for Clone Wars. But like I've been like, okay, Clone Wars is just like it's leading up to episode 3, but the last 2 episodes and presumably the next 2 episodes, like episode 3 is happening at the same time, and it's like exciting me.
Good.
I haven't been this excited for episode 3 in a very long time.
To be fair, episode 3 is not only the best prequel, but it's probably one of the best movies in the series. Hot take.
Yeah, that's a hot take.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with you though, because I love episode 3. Honestly, I was talking with my friends and I said, I'm going to be 100%. I love all the Star Wars movies, different degrees, but I love them all for what they are and what they do and stuff. Probably my least favorite right now might be Rise of Skywalker, but there's a lot of stuff that I do like about Rise of Skywalker as well. But yes, Mandalorian, so good, so great. Did pretty much like my brother and I were like, we have stipulations about this show. 2 things. I won't say what they are, but because I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to watch it.
Okay.
But we had like these 2 stipulations that were like, if this show does this, we're out. We're not interested. And then the show didn't do it. And I was like, perfect.
Okay, we're in.
10 out of 10. Best show.
Good.
But I've been enjoying it. And I want to watch Rebels, and I want to watch it like with a clean mindset and not try and be all like judging it on a different level. I want to judge it for what it is. And so,
Cool.
But I'm looking forward to watching Rebels. I am excited for Rebels. But Clone Wars has just been blowing me away, and I've been loving it.
Yeah, very
which back in the day when Clone Wars first was showing their episodes so many years ago, when I found out that Darth Maul had survived and was back, I was like, this show is the worst. I am out. But then I finally have been able to watch the entire series from beginning to end. And I've just been all like, this show has impressed me. And I'm like, they turned Darth Maul from something that I was like, okay, he's dead, I don't care about him anymore, to this guy is one of the best characters in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, they developed him a lot. And that didn't even start in the show on Clone Wars. That actually started with a book series that they wrote about him first.
I believe that, but
yeah, that's where they got the idea of bringing it back.
I'm so like pensive about expanded universe books and stuff like that. So it's just like I'll wait and see what's canon now, because they decanonized like everything.
I know, and I hated that. I hate that they took away a lot of stuff that had been built up, not only just by other Star Wars fans, but that so many other Star Wars fans had been invested in. And like, imagine taking the time to read all of the expanded universe stuff.
Absolutely.
And spend years of your life keeping up with that, and all of a sudden, poof, it doesn't exist.
Right. Well, it does exist. They're just called legends now.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess as long as you're into comic books, you're probably used to it at this point as well. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like all these big sprawling lores need a good reset every now and then.
Speaking of Star Wars and comic books, I have been slowly getting through the Darth Vader run that Marvel was doing for a while. That recanonized like what he had been doing after Revenge of the Sith and stuff. And that
with the Inquisitors and what's his Legion? The
501st.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The 501st is so cool. I love those guys. Anyway, I think my entire love for the 501st is strictly based off of Battlefront 2, the original.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Mine too. Mine too.
That was a really.
It's real good. Anyway, I'm gonna try and bring us back on track now.
We should probably get to our main topic here soon before we're like 4 hours long.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
We're already so we want to. You okay? Taking a little break first if we're switching over.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, I've been just reading the D&D books and talking about Studio Trigger, and I'm going to be moving on probably Gurren Lagann and Little Witch Academia after I'm done.
Nice.
Witch Academia was really good.
Yeah, I'm sad that I couldn't get into the second season yet. I've been wanting to go back to it for a while, but I haven't yet. But yeah, I watched through all the first season, and then for whatever reason, like the first or second episode of the second season, I was just like, I don't feel like watching it anymore. But
I think it's definitely worthwhile to watch Gurren Lagann first.
Yes.
There is a massive Gurren Lagann reference.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people have said a lot of good things about Gurren Lagann. That was another thing I was going to say really quick about Kill la Kill. There's another anime that I've completely fallen in love with in the same way with Kill la Kill, and that if I had come across this anime when I was younger, I would not have liked it. But now that I can appreciate anime on a different level as an adult, as an older adult now, I can appreciate these shows differently than I would have when I was younger. And the other show was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And
that's fair.
Completely fallen in love with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And that's been great. And Kill la Kill has been outstanding. They're both good on their own merits for different reasons.
I ended up deciding to read JoJo's instead of watching it because I could not sit through watching the first season.
Oh, really?
So So you and so many other people can't get through that first season because it's honestly the worst part of JoJo.
It is. Like, I've read all the way in through the first 3 seasons or 4 seasons now.
Right.
Like, how bad is it though? Really? Like, is it Bobo bad or like?
You take that back, sir. You take that back right now.
It doesn't get that kind of weird until later. Like you want to
that's actually the good.
Jojo and Bobo, they're just like got a few seasons to wait, but that's part of the problem actually with the first season. Really,
it's too boring. Honestly, I've only seen the first season and clips of the later stuff. First season's boring and stuff just kind of happens and it just moves along.
Well, the main reason because of that is because the author was really trying to figure out what it is that he wanted to do. The first part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the way that it is because of the other manga that were coming out at the time. Namely, the biggest problem was because of Fist of the North Star. It influenced all the other manga that was going on at the time to big burly guys doing crazy things with their special weird kung fu magic. So all the anime and all the manga were like that at the time. And so Araki was doing essentially Fist of the North Star. Super Eye Patch Wolf describes it as Fist of the North Star that had been written by an insane person.
And so the same person who really liked music. I guess is it all references to 80s music specifically?
Just all throughout the series, it's just as the years go on, music references.
Okay, so it's just music. It is a specific time period. Okay,
and that's just in the names. There isn't music based things that happen. In the series, it's just the names of characters, and then later the names of the stands are all music references. The early ones are more subtle music references, and then the stands later are just straight up the music references. JoJo really figures out what it wants to be in part 3, and then that's when the author is like, okay, this is what I want to do with the series. It's going to be unique and it's going to do its own thing. I started the series with part 3, knowing that parts 1 and 2 were so vastly different. And after finishing part 3 is when I went back and watched parts 1 and 2, and they became more interesting as a result. Because then you're like, oh, okay, this is what he kind of had in mind at first, as opposed to what you already expect from later. And then people pretty much say between parts 4 and parts 7 are the best parts. And so later on he really figures out what he wants to do with the series and then improves on it. So I don't disparage people from starting from part 3 and then going back to parts 1 and 2, because part 1 is it's just really boring, and that's the honest truth. It's very boring. But part 2, it's when Araki starts being like, oh, this is what I want to do with my characters. And then it starts getting way better in part 2, and then even that much better in part 3. And then from then onward, it becomes a lot better.
He keeps turning up the crazy dial, I feel, between them. Until he gets to his crazy. A very his crazy. And that's why I've always wanted to start part 3, but every time I'm just I don't have anything I really want to get from JoJo's to want to invest the time, which is kind of disappointing. But at the same time, just when I get to it,
don't disparage people. And I know you'll probably be like me, and 5 to 7 years from now, you'll sit down and be like, okay, let's check out part 3 really quick, and then you'll be like me with Kill la Kill.
Also with your story of Kill la Kill, I actually wanted to ask you how far are you into it so far? Because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about
we're almost done with season 1.
Almost done with season 1. I forget if there's 2 seasons or 3.
The last episode that we just saw was Senketsu was just turned into a whole bunch of little scraps, and Satsuki Kiryuin is planning on making Goku uniforms from the pieces of Senketsu.
Okay, I don't remember specifically how far that is, or if I should talk about anything about it.
I think it's episode 11 or 12. I don't remember which.
Okay.
It's first season.
Gotcha. Because there's only 12.
Ryuko just finished fighting the top 4 guys.
Okay.
And then what's her face? I don't remember.
I think I'd want to wait to talk about to talk more about it. Just in case it like somehow spoils something for you to like talk about it. But I'll at least say though that I also waited until last year to watch Kill la Kill. Because it was something on my like I was like for years was like I want to get to this at some time because I know a lot of people said that it's good or whatever, and none of the other trigger stuff that's been coming out I've been wanting to watch. So apparently I should go back and watch it and just to give myself some like motivation because it has like it was really nice to watch specifically then because I was like really wanting that motivation that comes from some of the themes of Kill la Kill, and I was super happy that I waited to watch it, honestly. So,
yeah, absolutely.
As well, like you like.
You're right. I feel like I can appreciate it way more than I would have when it first came out, and I was younger and definitely more jaded with anime.
Yeah.
Now my feelings are really indifferent when it comes to most anime. And so I've been really picky about the shows that I watch, and there've been shows that people that I respect heavily have talked about and said a lot of good things about. They're like, check this out, and I'm like, okay. And JoJo was definitely like, I don't know what this is, but these people that I respect and really like say that it's great. And then I watched, and I own the first 3 parts of the manga. Josh is slowly getting as the parts are being released in manga form. Part 4 is slowly being released officially in English. And gotcha. So we've been getting the manga slowly.
But there are 7 parts out now.
Of the manga?
Or of the anime, I mean. Is
no,
the translation?
Part 5 was the most recent part to be released of the anime. The anime is new. The manga is old.
Okay, gotcha.
So the anime is still really new. And so because there was a lot of things that especially the music references were one of the biggest reasons why the show was never like really animated. There has been OVAs, and there's an OVA that came out that goes over the second part of part 3, which was relatively well received. But they finally were able to sit down and be like, let's make the entire manga into an anime now, finally.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so the manga started in like 87, and it's still going. It's still going on to this day. It's up to part 8. In Japan.
I got a little confused because I thought earlier you said the anime had you were saying between parts 4 and 7 really good, so it wasn't.
I was referring to the manga in that case.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
the part 4 manga and the part 7 manga.
Gotcha. I thought you were talking about the anime still. I was like,
no.
Wait.
So far, only up to part 5 has been animated.
Okay.
They recently announced that part 6 is going to be getting worked on now as well. And so people are pretty excited about that because a fan favorite character is in part 6.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. So
looking forward to that.
I think that's all for what we've been up to, right? All right.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll take a little break and come back to talk about big topic stuff and pilot episodes and like beginning. Welcome back, everybody, to our break. We're going to talk about pilots and introductions and first episode type things. So to begin, I'm actually going to talk about the difference between a pilot and first episodes and stuff like that. So a pilot usually is an episode, sometimes a season, sometimes a mini-sode, to give to a company or publisher to show kind of what the episodes will be about and what their show is going to be about, to get greenlit to then become a full season show, whatever. Just first episodes are usually just like the beginning of the story, stuff like that. Pilot seasons are hopefully in order to get like a full picture of like a long running thing to what arcs and stuff are going to look like. All right, welcome back everybody from our little break. We're going to be talking about our big topic of pilot episodes, introductions, like first episode type stuff for this portion. I'll go first for a couple pilots that I've looked. I had to relook it up. I saw clips of both of these, but I had to go back earlier today. And one of them was the because I was watching OKKO recently. In their series itself, they actually do a thing where they go back and talk about the pilot, which is funny. And they show it again in a weird context of like a show and tell type thing. It was interesting. But yeah, where the big thing was the art style was really different and the characters' like clothes were different. But a lot of it was the same of what the opening few episodes were, of just kind of karate looking kid who's new to this workplace, kind of picks fights with people and tries to like suss out the actual problem going on with who's attacking the plaza and like how to actually get rid of them. And it just does it, like finds out the person who was like disguised, who messed up a sign. But yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the big things about it though was that it reminded me of, because I've been looking up a lot of stuff about styles, and it reminded me a lot about how people are arguing about a CalArts style versus like Newgrounds style. Yeah. And I was like, how did this come up? Where they had like the weird square noses that you saw in a lot of like art from Newgrounds. Mm-hmm. And now it looks like everybody has like kind of round, like I don't know if everybody has round. Yeah, I think it's more rounder in general, and they don't have a lot of like the weird tacked on things to their outfits. But yeah, it's weird that they made that change off of that style, which I'm not the biggest. I've never was, even when I was like a super big Newgrounds fan. Never really liked the big square square other colored nose that they had. So I'm kind of glad they changed that. But yeah, it also was interesting because they had they actually have a lot more scenes of this where he gets like the firepower like actual strength, and he's like trying to use it and fails constantly. And in it they show kind of that much more like over time, instead of in the pilot they show it like he does it twice in one episode, and usually he just kind of does it once and it kind of fizzles out. But they kind of show that there's supposed to be more power to this kid than meets the eye, which is good for like a long, like what they're gonna go for over time in an actual show. So and they have everybody use their powers and stuff, and so it kind of lets you realize kind of their mentality on issues and how they deal with problems, stuff like that. So it was on the whole a solid pilot to know what the show is about. But so it was neat that they still had all of that but changed the style. And then the second pilot I saw was actually the Billy and Mandy pilot, which I watched a big thing about Billy and Mandy, like season-wide, like how it changed and stuff like that a while back, and I saw that they played this full clip for the pilot in that, so I rewatched it, and yeah, it has no like, doesn't have grim in it at all. It's just these two kids doing kind of mostly Mandy doing twisted things to Billy, and it seems like they might be like I think it just does that the voice actors might have been siblings or something, because it looks like they had the same last name. I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be siblings in this this pilot, but yeah, it's just Mandy giving Billy like pseudo brain surgery, essentially, and just he kind of dies at the end, and that's just that's the pilot. She just does that. They talk a little bit about like the practice of it and where they might have like I don't even know if this would be true at all, but like that they like put holes in people's skulls in order to let like brain expand or something, and
lobotomizing.
Yeah, or it was trepanation specifically.
Oh, you're right.
But yeah, so they were like, so they did this whole thing about that, and that was just the episode, and I'm like, I don't know how that premise of just things happen to this boy would go through.
I'm definitely glad they added Grimm.
Yeah,
to the show.
A solid choice. Yeah, that's why I'm like, this has nothing to do with like kind of the premise of Billy, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. It just has a little bit to do with kind of a dumb boy and this kind of sadistic girl interact, and that would be it. So I'm really glad they like did like a whole supernatural element and kind of kept with the characteristics of those two of their main characters, but like actually threw it into scenarios instead of just they do a thing. So, and also the style of it was much different. Like everybody was kind of more lengthy. Ren and Stimpy is the best way I could think about it.
Yeah.
Like a more average character look, but kind of in that style. And it was like, as far as I know, with what I remember and what I saw earlier today was that it was all black and white and kind of film grainy. Like it was some kind of like old, like a weird old informational video. So that was really weird, but yeah, I'm glad they like turned it into like just a kind of weird take, like kind of subversion on classic cartoons.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were the pilot. Those are the only two pilots I've seen recently. Anybody else have a pilot or want to talk about pilots?
Yeah. So the Rick and Morty. I remember the Rick and Morty pilot being released on YouTube shortly after it got greenlit. And it was I remember it being like super bizarre because it was so crudely drawn. And like Rick and Morty is already kind of crudely drawn anyway. Like the animation's gotten a lot better in the last 2 seasons. But season 1 was rough. Like, but I think that was because they had to try and keep up with the pace of when they wanted to produce the episodes. And it was a smaller crew. But it's just like the entire thing was supposed to be an absurd parody of an absurd and short parody of Back to the Future.
Right.
Yeah. That's the vibe I got.
Doc and Marty.
Yep. Doc and Marty. That's exactly what it was. And it was just Doc drinking the whole fucking time and abusing Marty while going back in time and putting him in life-threatening situations. And for some weird reason, Cartoon Network was like, "Yeah, let's fucking do it. Let's air that shit.
Let's do it."
Man, leave my Back to the Future memories alone. I watched that with my grandma.
Yo, I love Back to the
Future. We actually binged all of them while I was divorced.
I want to binge them again.
Yeah.
I watched.
I think it was about 5 years ago or something. I got my mom like a really nice box set of all 3 movies of Back to the Future, and it was something that me and my siblings were very proud of to give her because it's one of her favorite movie series.
Nice.
It's one of my favorites too.
Oh,
I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's fun.
I didn't watch them back when. I think I've only seen 2 recently, like a few years ago with friends at college.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to talk about movies right now. We're here to talk about pilots.
We're here to talk about Rick and Morty.
No, we're not.
We're here to talk about Doc and Marty.
Go Back to the Future.
The pilot almost reminded me of if like they took Drunk History and did it with a cartoon parody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I don't know why it was so striking to me at that particular time, but it really did.
So weird and bizarre.
Absolutely. The other pilot, and like I think the purpose of pilots, or at least for releasing them to the public, is to like give them an idea of what the rough draft was, and you could appreciate the wholesale product a lot more. You know what I mean?
Kind of. I know with Billy and Mandy and a few other shows from that era. Actually, I don't remember if they did the pilot, or I think what it was for the Billy and Mandy one was that pilot didn't actually get greenlit. They redid it because I remember actually that they did another one that they actually aired instead of just giving it to the execs. There was a block they did on Cartoon Network where they showed the public all the pilots and had you vote for them.
Right. Yeah.
So that Evil Con Carne and I know a few other, because basically they had it to where they liked both Evil Con Carne and Grim Adventures so much they actually, for the first season or 2, they had them running simultaneously as the same show. Yeah,
I remember that. They would do like the first 15 minutes would be Billy and Mandy, and then the second 15 would be Eva Con Carne.
Yep. So
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because I was watching. I watched so much cartoons back then during that time. So
and then eventually Billy and Mandy just absorbed Evil Con Carne.
Yeah.
To itself.
No, they actually stopped doing Evil Con Carne. They made its own separate show, canceled it, and then got it greenlit for another season later.
Right, but those characters still showed up more in.
A couple of them did, but that was actually after they did the second season later on. They just started. They just did it. So yeah.
Anyway, also the other thing that was really striking to me is that the difference between a sitcom pilot and an animated cartoon pilot. Like the cartoon pilot for Adventure Time was another one I was thinking about.
I was thinking about it too.
It's such a simple idea of like a formula that they could exploit, and just to do like a monster of the week type thing or problem of the week hero style. But then when you like take the pilot for say Scrubs or Friends or even The Office, like how drastically it shifts in not necessarily delivery, but in the how much it sets the tone for the rest of the show. Because like for Adventure Time, it started off as like a goofy, lighthearted thing, and it ended up becoming this whole overarching story of like saving the world. But with like How I Met Your Mother, it really kicked off its narrative in the first episode, and then it had already decided how it was going to end in the first episode, whereas like Adventure Time decided nothing in the first in its pilot. It got to decide what it wanted to be at the end organically. That was just my those were my big takeaways on the variation between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're talking to me before about how Scrubs did their pilot. I'm curious.
Scrubs pilot was very interesting as well. It was more about setting up characters, not so much as tropes. Even though in the end everybody did kind of fall into a trope, where like Elliot was that squeaky annoying girl who had to try super hard to get everybody's attention. JD was the feminist guy who was really in touch with his emotions, but he was also really smart and struggled with his masculinity because everybody around him was literally more manly just by existing. Dr. Cox was the grizzled veteran who's been doing it for too fucking long. He's getting too old for this shit. Tired of teaching new interns and seeing them just come and go out the door when he's there stuck with their shit. And Turk is that cocky black dude who's trying to prove that he belongs there and that he's smarter than the typical like Joe that you meet on the street. He's not one of those just hip hop thugs that are hanging out on stoops, you know, who's trying to break through the prejudice. That's where I was going with that. Yeah, and then there's Carla, who is the heart of the show, really.
Yeah. I was gonna say with because it seemed that actually you talking about How I Met Your Mother is actually reminded me a lot of Death Note, and how their first episode plays out and how it does the same thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it feels like there's two versions. One where they establish what the plot is going to be, and one where they establish how the characters are going to act.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Adventure Time does the same thing with Scrubs. It defines the characters first.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that probably depends mostly on the show. Like, if like a situational comedy, things like that. It's about having characters and how they interact, and that's the most important thing to know first of all.
Yes.
But like when the plot's the central thing, like Death Note or whatever.
Yeah. So it's interesting that so far it seems like there are two variations on this. And it actually makes it's really interesting to me on which of these shows I like more than others, and thinking of their pilots. It's been really interesting. But yeah, so was that all the pilots you had though, Mike?
Well, those were all the ones I wanted that I thought of.
Okay, so yeah, anybody else have pilots to talk about?
I do have a pilot that I wanted to bring up, which Mike, thank you for bringing up the Adventure Time pilot. That was good. You pretty much hit everything that I wanted to say on there. Were we talking about pilots just for shows that have been picked up, or pilots that, because the pilots that I often thinking about are of shows that have not yet been picked up or just did not get picked up?
Interesting. I actually had a couple also that I was going to talk about at the end of everything that I've been thinking about. That is interesting. So I'll any kind of pilots you want to talk about, it'll be interesting to talk about them without having like any amount of series on how they went about talking about their series. But go ahead.
I feel like it's very interesting because a common thing with a lot of pilots is establish who the characters are, establish what the story is, establish what needs to be done in the pilot. Whether it's an episode or like a mini series or like even a pilot season, like whatever. Like I know the Legend of Vox Machina is getting worked on right now.
Right. Amazon picked them up.
That's very exciting, and I look forward to watching that. But I know that they're also wanting to show the show to other like people that'll want to pick it up, so they can make more of it at some point later. But what I wanted to talk about is a pilot that just came out at the beginning of this month, and it's came out on Adult Swim. and it's a pilot
that's right,
for a show called Smiling Friends.
Yup.
I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I have seen it.
Oh my gosh, I have the link. When this is over, I encourage you to watch it. But I'm sending the link in the chat right there. There you go. Smiling Friends. Smiling Friends was created by, let me see, I have it right here. Michael Cusack, who did a lot of stuff online and stuff like that. But the big one for me, because I've been following this group of creators for a very long time, especially considering they're from Newgrounds, that's where they started off. But Zach Hadel, aka Psychic Pebbles, was heavily involved with this. Does a few of the voices, as well as you can see from like the images and stuff. And I'll send you a clip or a link to the thing that I'm looking at. If you look at the art, it looks like Psychic Pebbles' stuff, like 110%. And it looks like
seen that art style before.
It looks like a Psychic Pebbles animation, but it's cleaner. There's a lot of work that was put into it, and I think that's because the Adult Swim were the ones that helped work on it, but put a lot of work into it.
It kind of reminds me of Super Jail.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know if you ever watched Hellbenders, but that's also on YouTube and was also on Newgrounds. But it was also made by Zach Hadel and Oni, Chris O'Neill. And so they had, from what I've been listening to, because I've been listening to the their podcast. I'm trying to remember. Sleepycast. Thank you.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about how they've been working on stuff, and they've been going to like places to get series picked up, and this appears to be the first results of the fruits of their labor of them getting picked up for something. And so this pilot that came out, it's very, very Psychic Pebbles, and it's like animation, storytelling, voice acting, and the whole subject. So if you guys aren't familiar, Smiling Friends is about these two guys that are part of this small company that the entire point is to try and make people happy. And so they're tasked to go and like they're hired to go and spend time with people and make them happy. And as they're going, that's a very like silly like premise and stuff to start off with. But as they go, they run into their very first person that they're tasked to like go help out is this fellow that I'm posting in the thing. This is the first thing that they see.
Yep.
And the entire episode, which to those listening, I sent them a picture of this really, really depressed looking old guy with a gun to his head. Yeah. And the entire episode is them like, yo, don't kill yourself. We're going to make you happy. And if we make you happy, then you put the gun away and you don't kill yourself. And it was like, okay, fine. But if you don't make me smile, I'm going to kill myself and I'm going to make you guys watch. And so like they take him to like the amusement park. They take him to like arcades. They take him to all these places to make him happy. And the entire time he has this depressed, like
the same look
on his face with the gun to his head the entire time.
Yep.
The entire episode. It's so Psychic Pebbles, and it's so funny.
Also, the funny thing I keep thinking about after watching it, and anytime someone brings it up, is the fact that the kind like going into it, you should already know, because the kinds of people that you're gonna have, that you're gonna be sent out to go help, are obviously these kinds of people.
Right. No, exactly.
So it's like,
no, it's so funny.
But you're still shocked.
Like, oh, look, they get called by this guy's mom.
Yeah.
And it's all like, my little boy has been feeling a little bit down, and he doesn't. Can you like make him happy? And then they come in and they see this guy. He's like just on the point to just blow his entire brains out on them. Yeah. And so it's just the entire thing is them like, hey, look, this is me, and it's. I don't want to spoil too much about it because it's just a riot.
It is something else. I'll say that.
And it's a really good example of establishing who the characters are, what the premise of the show is, what the style of. I think when it comes to Adult Swim shows, really big important thing for it is the kind of humor that you're going to be expecting in this show. And in the pilot like this, they establish this is going to be some dark humor that's going to be involved.
Can I say something about the pilot as well?
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, they lost me with that B plot.
Yeah. The B plot. The B plot was definitely just like wacky antics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the entire thing was just kind of like fill in time.
That's considering. Yeah, because if that was how they're going to handle like kind of not being on the super kind of serious depressing train and try to kind of swap it up with that kind of stuff, I'm not 100% on board, but I did find it all interesting.
Right, but it also like it's one of those things that it mixes things up, I guess.
Yeah, that's
for better or for worse. Which it's you can take or leave. I can't really say yay or nay on it. I thought it was fine, but I wasn't super engaged with it as much as the A plot for the entirety. I wanted to see more and hear what was going to happen next.
Exactly. So that's why.
But I really enjoyed that, and that was. I just thought it was very interesting that you guys were talking about the other pilots as well. It's like we got to establish all this and see if we could get picked up for a full series or not. And that's anytime that pilots are like shown to the public, it's usually to be like, let's see what the public thinks about this and if they're interested to do more or not.
So did you have any other pilots?
Did I get disconnected?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? My thing's lighting up. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
I can't hear you guys. Maybe I'll hop out and then hop back in.
Hello? 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 Can you hear me?
I can see your things lighting up, but I don't hear anything. I wonder if it's my headphones.
Hello?
I wonder what happened. Because I can't hear anybody either. Everybody reconnect.
Hello? Hey, there we go.
Fixed it. Did you guys hear?
We're doing it live. All right.
Did you guys hear everything that I said?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I assume that picked up because it just went completely silent.
Yeah, I could only hear you, but nobody could hear me, I don't think. And
everyone could just hear you and no one else.
That's hilarious.
But yeah.
So you stopped talking and it just sounded like no one picked it up. I was waiting for Alex to say something.
Yeah.
To move us along. I feel like I'm next, but I'm not talking about a pilot.
I was asking, I'm like, did you have another pilot? Hello. But yeah, so did you have another pilot, Jingles?
No, that was it.
Okay, I actually want to talk about one other pilot that I think is interesting. That well, actually, two.
I thought about talking about the modifiers, but I
don't know what that is. But
it was like a one-time thing.
Oh, okay.
Because it was pretty cool, but I didn't have a lot to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
a pilot that didn't get picked up then.
No, it did not.
Oh, okay.
That was another series that didn't get picked up in the end.
Yeah. So
unfortunate there are so many that don't get picked up.
Yeah, there's only so much that can go around.
No, it's true. It's sometimes funny to see what does get picked up,
or
what does,
just what does,
who thought
and what doesn't.
Was a good idea,
right?
Hi, people.
People like comic fans are still trying to figure out why they dropped Young Justice and picked up Teen Titans Go.
Oh, because well, I can tell you why. It's again because of the same. It's the same demographic that got Uncle Grandpa picked up.
You're so right.
Like it's just the chill kids who just sit there and watch whatever's on Cartoon Network that is kind of colorful and bright, and so it makes sense why Young Justice.
Grandpa.
But yeah, it's a darker tone show with less wacky things going on. Not a comedy. Those are the things that hit that demographic, and so it's easier.
No complicated plot to follow.
Yeah, exactly. No plot.
Ew, complicated plots.
Ew, plot to follow. But yeah, so
why is
But that's why it's also the number one show.
What about why would Steven Universe? It gets dark and it's got a complicated plot.
Yeah, but it's also colorful and bright, and also
right. Excuse me.
Wacky.
I feel like it was also a little later. Was it a little later?
Well, the other big thing about it is that again, kids could watch it because again, it's colorful and bright, especially at the beginning, and then the people who were in that demographic back, when they were 9 through 6 or whatever, 4 years later, where we are now like 16, 17 and are a teenager and are having to deal with the stuff that they're talking about, that is super serious in Steven Universe.
It's interesting that Cartoon Network seems to be pushing the whole colorful and not too complicated thing.
Yeah, whereas, simplistic art cells.
Nickelodeon somehow got Avatar and Korra.
You cut out. Hello? Is the call curse happening again? I can't hear anybody. Of course it works over here.
Of course it does.
Get on Mysterious Breast Fortress, man.
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's too mysterious for anybody to block us from finishing this goddamn podcast. Man. All right.
It wouldn't be a podcast without technical issues.
Whee!
Yay!
Yay! Okay, yeah, I think I was gonna say the thing I was gonna talk about really quickly. So one thing I noticed, at least with the OKKO pilot, was it was like 4 minutes long. It wasn't even a full like episode length of stuff. It just shows bam, 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 getting through how people interact and what the general plot of just we fight bad guys and these robots. And now thinking of actually like the Hazbin Hotel, Hell of a Boss, and what is it, Game Oververse, which are the like kind of from internet creator to these kind of things. All are doing like full ass episodes. Trying to make for their pilots. Yeah, so
yeah, I was gonna say I'm surprised you didn't talk about that one sooner. Actually,
it's just because it wasn't what I was looking at things with series specifically, I guess, when I was thinking of it at first, and then while thinking of it later throughout the day, I was like, oh yeah, it can like this thing between Hazbin and whatnot. So yeah,
that was all ready for another Hazbin episode. After
man, I know it was so good, but it felt like a full first episode and less of just a bullet points on how people do stuff. It does show how a lot of people interact, but also gives them side plots with other side characters that aren't going to be in the main hotel, and so it was really interesting for them to want to put in so much like outside the base interactions you're going to get, but in essence what I guess tell me from their pilot and trying to like think about it as someone greenlighting it is that you're not even going to have a whole lot of plot just with these characters interacting. It's just going to be them interacting with a bunch of other people at all times, which might be kind of worrisome to a lot of companies, I'd imagine, because it means there's going to be a lot of extra stuff they're gonna have to build. Like they can't reuse a lot of sets because they're probably gonna be at other people's locations doing things with them instead of just having it more simple. Like with OKKO, it's mostly just the like plaza where they work and like occasionally a few other locations. So there isn't a whole lot they have to worry about with set design for that kind of stuff. Where with Hazbin, it's like who knows. So
yeah, it also shows a greater importance in like the world over just this one particular setting within the world.
Yeah, so again, makes it kind of hard for companies, and there's just a lot of lore from the get-go on world building stuff than what normal pilots would have, like any of the pilots we've talked about so far. Except for maybe Adventure Times. I don't remember Adventure Times very well, so I can't really say too much about that.
They interacted with a handful of characters.
Yeah.
I think there was I want to say that was the first time they fought the Ice King.
Probably that would, because that's generally the A plots of most of these is they're fighting Ice King and then something else kind of trips them up and then they fight the Ice King.
Pretty much.
So, yeah. So it's not a whole lot. Like there is a few places that people are going to be at for that. So there's that. So not like unheard of, but it's definitely something that a lot of pilots won't really do. I feel because it's just a lot more to handle from the get-go before they get a whole lot of build up with a season or whatever, which I think is usually why it's just like simple settings with kind of a little bit of back and forth between a few forces. So but but at the same time with like I would say a lot of other world building or world built fully fleshed out built worlds shows that are out now, like mostly Game of Thrones as an example, where they have a lot of different places with a lot of things going on in different areas and whatnot, and a lot of interconnecting storylines with that. Might be something people are more interested in because those usually work pretty well. So I like that kind of story building where there's just a lot of interesting plots going around.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
I definitely required more money and things like that to make that possible.
That's true. And
speaking of something along those lines, by the way, quick side tangent, they're coming out with a Lord of the Rings show.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting.
Could be good.
Yeah. The material there has been tested as good, so.
Mostly I think there isn't more source material, at least.
Yeah.
Still, all sorts of stuff in the Silmarillion whatnot they could go poking around at.
Yeah. Yep. But the only thing is though with them like making long stretching out content like this for something a lot of people didn't like the Hobbit films, so there's that to kind of go off of though. So it'll be something.
But they have to pick a good spot and like make it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, where was I at?
Well, I think we were on Jake.
Or no, I had something else I was thinking about saying. Oh, I don't know what's in game. Ross hasn't shown a whole lot about how Gameverse goes through with its stuff, but it at least is like a full episode basically of the show as well. But with sorry, and now I know what I was gonna say, but this is also something I was eventually gonna get to. But yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what his all entails, other than it has like a medium cast of like 3 characters, I think, and at least a couple of villains of some sort. So, but I was gonna say about the world built stuff and how I like that more. I like it more because I just generally like bigger cast shows than a small cast show. So yeah. But yeah, I think that's going to be the end of it for specifically talking about pilots and them getting their foot in the door. So, yeah, I guess first episode talk, we can start off with Jake, who hasn't had pilots.
I didn't have any pilots. I only had first episodes that I checked into. And I went and just like kind of checked out some animes and stuff that I could think of that like had interesting starts, or the one I picked out was actually the Rise of the Shield Hero from like a season or 2 ago, which made the smart and somewhat unique choice. Like you don't see it too often, especially in anime, where they actually made a full hour-long episode for their first episode, despite the rest of the series only being 30 minutes for every episode. Which was really important for their source material, because if you started 30 minutes in, the first episode would be really awful. And so it was very important for them to go for the full hour. Like the basis for the beginning of it is that like it starts out like a very standard kind of like hero transported to another world series, but then the hero is very quickly betrayed and like framed for a crime he didn't commit. And it's right about there the first episode would end within 30 minutes, like after everything had just gone to absolute crap. And the other 30 minutes doesn't make things better, but at least shows kind of where he's going from there. And kind of like gets you at least on the path to making things better.
Yeah, I was gonna say where it's actually like it gives you an starting to answer questions instead of just asking what is gonna go on.
Like, here's this fantasy world. Here's all these characters. Here's your hero. Oh, everyone hates him. And then the other one of the show I looked at was actually Sword Art. Which, despite the fact that no one really likes where Sword Art went, but I think especially during the time, most people agreed Sword Art started out very promising. And so I actually went back and did watch the first episode, and it does do a very good job of like setting the setting, introducing the characters, and getting you like a really good idea for like how it's supposed to be planning and going. And the first episode ends with you being pretty excited for the show.
Okay, because see, I think I remember the second episode or third episode where I'm just kind of like done.
Yeah, like it very immediately like starts going bad, starts going downhill. But the first episode, the way they introduce is really well.
Okay, gotcha.
I will give them that much.
Yeah, because I don't remember. Again, since it all kind of blurs together to me, and I was like, at the end of me watching, however much I did watch, I didn't want to watch anymore.
Yeah, the first episode is just they get into SAO. He teaches Klein like how the game works. He introduces you like the systems and stuff, and then the announcement that they're trapped in the world, and you get your like, if I die in the game, I die in real life moment.
Okay, gotcha.
And then he just commits to like going it alone and like not dying, and that's where the first episode ends.
Okay, gotcha. Then that episode was good, and that definitely would have kept me going. But yeah. Because I'm fine with usually learning about systems of whatever kind of game they are in isekai animes. So
if it's a game type world, at least.
Yeah. Because at that point it was mostly just doing the worlds. Like it wasn't really into actual fantasy, like a general fantasy setting yet. So. But yeah.
I don't know. Anyone else have a good first episode or start to a show that was interesting?
I have a bad first episode, technically.
That's worth talking about too. Really.
Well, I'm gonna say it's a bad episode because honestly, if most of the time, if I were ever to watch this episode in isolation, I would not want to watch the show. And it's actually the Panty and Stocking first episode.
Huh.
It's just very vulgar. Like the first, like especially because they block it off actually like cartoons generally do, where it's 2 sections of 2 different like events per episode. So the first like chunk of the first episode is they find a giant shit monster and there's just stuff flying everywhere, and it's kind of not great. Like it's just vulgar and kind of stupid, and there's not a whole lot to it. On like how like a little bit on how the characters react are interesting, but it really doesn't give you a whole lot to go off of. And it kind of starts you on this, they have to fight ghosts in order to get back to heaven or whatever because they're angels. So but that episode in isolation, like not good.
Yeah.
The second half of it is just they honestly, the only thing I could say that kind of gives you a premise for it that makes it more interesting than just bad is mostly, I think it might happen with the first episode, but mostly happens with the second episode, where Panty doesn't have her weapon anymore throughout the whole episode, and she's basically useless. So it basically shows you in these episodes like these weapons are kind of the only way they do stuff, but they're the only people with their weapons who can do these kind of crazy antics that otherwise is a bad time for everyone involved. So, but yeah, they take away her weapon, and it's just a very like, he makes speed innuendos nonstop. The second monster does, or ghost, just innuendos the entire time. Like nothing he does is, he doesn't shut up about it. It also shows a little bit about like basically that Panty is always sleeping around is another thing, and so it does a lot with it talks a lot with that and how she she gets berated a ton by this innuendo spewing ghost. So it was a little funny there. But other than that, those 2 episodes did not make me interested in all. It wasn't until I actually watched the second episode yesterday, at least the first half of it yesterday, and that one actually gave me a lot of interesting dynamics between the 2 and kind of how they play a role in the world at large, stuff like that, instead of just they go around fighting people, but like what their personalities are like reflected on other people. It also shows you the other reoccurring character, which is Brief.
Right.
So they actually have the full like dynamic there with him getting slapped around a lot. So
yeah.
Yeah. One show I know that starts pretty bad as well. I ended up hearing later that it was due to like some management issues.
Yeah.
Was Lucky Star. Actually, the first few episodes really boring. And then I hear it gets much better. I've never managed to get beyond like episode 2 before.
I didn't know
that. It's on my list if I need to go and like start episode 3 or 4 or something like that and actually watch all of Lucky Star.
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie, I still love the first episode. It does nothing happens, but just the way the characters say like just talk about dumb topics just made my day back when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you have to just be, I guess, willing to sit through a lot of that to get.
I hear it gets much better.
Yeah,
like episode 3. I guess they switched directors or something like that, like episode 3 or 4.
Gotcha.
Or something along those lines happened, and it gets better.
I don't know, but interesting because I don't remember a lot of the series at large. I want to say they actually start doing like having plot elements that actually where the characters actually have to have a goal to do something probably after that episode. So that sounds like what would happen, but I don't remember well enough. Chocolate cornets though, man.
Chocolate cornets though, man.
Which direction do you eat it from?
I've never had one, so I couldn't tell you. But yeah, I could see why people wouldn't like it though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh, there is another first episode that I watched that is of an anime still, or that's this season. It kind of got me at the beginning. It seemed it's It Invaders is the anime I watched. I only watched the first episode, so I don't know how it plays out with everything, and I'm not going to actually spoil the second half, but talk about it a little bit because it sets up some weird stuff. A guy who has amnesia wakes up in like this weird alternate world where things are kind of like bits of buildings are kind of flying around everywhere, and he's on one that is kind of stationary, I think. But he himself also is kind of fragmented apart everywhere, and he has to put himself together, but a few of the pieces are missing. So his arm actually has segments of it missing that he can throw it and then pull it back to him and like pull bits of the world back together, buildings, which interesting premise, but at the same time I didn't really care too much because I actually stopped it like a little bit further and then had to come back to it for this podcast. And he so when he puts it back together, he sees there's this girl that's dead, and he has to figure out who done it, and it's like a murder mystery thing. And at that point I was kind of done with it because I'm like, I don't really care too much about a weird murder mystery thing. But what you find out really like just like a little bit afterwards is this is actually kind of a simulation that they're pulling off, and he's a part of I'm guessing he's a part of it. It's confusing. Still, even after this, of like this bureau that it actually reminds me a lot of Psychopaths, if you've ever seen it. Yeah. Where they're trying to find a murderer, and this is a simulation inside that murderer's mind that they're able to like put together with pieces of his memory that lingers around at crime scenes.
Okay, I actually played a game that was a lot like that recently.
Oh yeah, I think I saw you playing it. What was?
Yeah, Somnium Files, which is made by the same people who do the Zero Escape games.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, and it's the whole idea is like you can like dive into someone's dreams.
Okay, so a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but they often are dreaming of the crime scene in question.
Okay, yeah, because this is his kind of his subconscious. So a little bit further, he finds past victims that he kind of morphed into how he sees them now after they're dead, basically, or like how he thinks about them and stuff like that. And it's really weird. And so, the big thing, I don't know if I should like talk about the ending of the episode or not, because the ending of the episode is actually what got me like, that is neat for where this is going, but at the same time very stupid.
Well, I'm probably never going to go and try to watch it. I didn't watch it when it was airing, and I'm probably not going to go back now.
Okay, is it okay if I just spoil? I guess it's the first episode, but spoil it.
That's fine with me.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, after that point, he realizes actually that there's only one person he has found. Well, one, he actually puts together more of the world and finds chunks of it are missing that spell out a word that they realize are key to the crime scene, or not the crime scene, but the crime scene technically, where he is now, where he's kind of hiding with the newest victims. And in it, he also is noticing all these missing parts, and he finds that there's one thing out of all of the world that isn't broken apart, and it's actually the girl that died, or that was dead in the simulation. So he figures out that like he is I don't know why he figured out that it was that he's hiding inside, like in the cracks of that other person, in order to disguise himself in this world. Mm-hmm. And so he finds it, he's like pointing it out or whatever. He does that. But what also happens is on the outside, there is a child, as far as I'm concerned, a child and this older man who have to go and scout out that location that he found as like a clue. And in it, the old man goes forward and tells the little girl to stay back. And as he goes in, there's a SWAT team with him, right? The older guy, to this house that just got there as he's going in. And basically at the very end of the episode, while they were apparently in the house trying to find the dude, he apparently somehow got out. This little girl who's like a rookie on the team or whatever gets captured by and killed, like apparently on the spot or soon after, because she appears in his psyche in the Psychoverse, which is called the Idwell, but I'll call it the Psychoverse for now. Where she appears and she's all fragmented and stuff, so she recently died. Is how they talked about it earlier. Is that those are the people who've died or whatever. Maybe not, but still, like that's the weird thing, is like she might be dead because of things they talked about earlier in the episode, but might not be because we haven't seen her dead. So she died, which is really like intense for like wanting to like see if that's actually what's happening, or see it unfold from there, like them getting to her possibly. Also stupid because she's a small girl, apparently nothing to defend herself, not in the car, and locked the door apparently. She was just out in the open, and none of the SWAT guys stayed around to protect her.
Yeah, and like they SWAT didn't surround the house.
SWAT didn't do their job well. It was a whole lot like a whole lot of stupid things that led up to this apparently happening. So after you think about it for like, again, a hot minute, you're just like, but that's stupid. But yeah, so I don't know. Interesting to see her back. I still don't know if I would trust it because of bad storytelling. So yeah.
Mike, did you end up watching that episode of that anime I asked you to watch yesterday?
No, he forgot. Yeah.
No, I didn't forget. I looked for it. I couldn't find an English sub.
That's interesting.
What show was it? I forget what.
It was School Live.
School Live. Oh, yeah, School Live.
I can go over what happens in the first episode. It was more fun if someone had like freshly experienced it.
Okay.
So the whole
the opening like 3 minutes where the dog was trying to wake her up or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So the whole show gets introduced to you. Like it starts and it's like a very kind of like happy and bubbly like moe show, and it ends up being about like there's like 3 and maybe 4 girls, and they seem to just be like living inside their school. Like they just like stay there for some reason, like they're like part of a club or something like that. But you never see any other students as you go through the first episode, and like they're growing like a garden on the roof, but like it's just introduced that that's just something they're doing. But everything seems cool. It's all bubbly and happy, And then like as the first episode ends, it like cuts, and it goes from like a nice and like bright, pretty school you've been seeing all episode to like, wait a minute, all the windows are broken, and that desk is covered in blood. And then like it pans outside the window, and outside is the zombie apocalypse. And you've been experiencing the entire first episode through the main character's eyes.
Yeah, I was gonna say
gone crazy and is under this psychosis that like they're just living here as like this club of these 4 girls, but they're actually just holed up there surviving the zombie apocalypse together, and she's the only one who doesn't know.
Not damn. Yeah,
I never watched anything beyond the first episode, but
it's a good first episode.
When the first episode aired.
Yeah, I want to say it's that or something else is by the guy who. I remember hearing something about the guy who does Berserk needing to like do something else for a little while with his life.
He does things related to Love Live, if I'm not
Love Live, that's what it was. Okay, I knew it was something live, and I was like, was it this?
We don't get more Berserk because instead he has to do Love Live.
Hey man, everybody needs a hobby.
Yep.
Can't continue one of the best manga of all time. No. A new school needs to grow up and raise their idols.
Dude. I mean, to be fair, working on Berserk for too long might drive someone insane.
The detail on those pages is pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
So much Griffith before you turn into an asshole in real life.
Yeah. Any other first episodes?
I think that was all I had.
Yeah, I just had like
the
pilots specifically. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there was something else I was gonna say. I forget what it is now. Oh, there was something else I was kind of going to talk about, but I didn't actually watch them, so I can't talk about them in detail. But the Soul Eater, first 4 episodes where you're introduced to the main 4 like teams, where it goes from one person's like initiation to another, or like not really initiation, but like their first like real trial together.
It's like a not at all plot relevant like thing that each person does. But it's like a really good introduction to them.
Yeah, but it's just their dynamic as a team, and then like an enemy that lives around the world to kind of like tell like it does kind of what the has-been thing of going around to all the different parts of the world to kind of like learn something about things and dynamics. But they stretched it out in 4 episodes to really like key in on their main cast. Yeah. So
Soul and Maka, Death and the twins.
Yeah, and then Black Star. Tsubaki, yeah.
I had looked briefly at the first episode for Bakemonogatari, just because I wanted to kind of think about it a little bit because I like Monogatari a lot. It's one of my favorite series. Easy.
You do.
But I know it's hard to kind of start. And so I was curious what it'd be like just trying to watch the first episode, kind of thinking about it in that way.
Yeah.
I think I watched the whole first episode, or at least I skimmed it. And it does a good job of kind of giving you an idea of what you're in for with Monogatari, where it's like, okay, you got characters, they're going to have some witty dialogue with lots of like really artistic shots and stuff. The entire time they're just talking to each other. Nothing else is happening.
Yeah, they do a lot of weird cinematography type stuff with it.
Yeah, and you get a bunch of that in the first episode. It introduces you to kind of everything that matters.
I forget.
Except for, I think, more of the cast. I think it's the big problem.
Yeah, I forget who all they talk to. I just remember really the weird stapley bit at the beginning.
Good old stable. I love all the openings. They're amazing.
But yeah,
in the first episode, you only meet Araragi, Sindrigahara, the like main character for that arc. You meet Hanekawa, class president, just like an information character.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then you meet Oshino as like they want to solve Senjugahara's problems. But other than that, you don't meet any of the other characters yet.
Is that the old guy?
Yeah. The old guy in the Hawaiian shirt who lives in a
good.
abandoned boarding school.
Yes. Because I was like, he's probably like he would be the most important character I would say that you would have to meet in the first episode for sure.
And you see Shinobu.
Yeah, that would be the other.
You see Shinobu and learn that her name is Shinobu, but she's introduced as like an existence that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't remember too much of the episode.
Senjugahara asks about her, and their response is pretty much like, "You don't really need to know. It doesn't matter."
I don't know. That seems pretty suspicious, which is good because it should be. So for that show, so that's good.
But I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is that stops it from like being as interesting as the later parts. I think it's just that you're not invested yet. I think you need to meet more of the characters and get more invested.
Yeah, it also has to do with you actually. He doesn't do as much as I feel he does in later bits. Like they don't show off as much of the stuff.
Yeah.
Is the big thing.
Like later episodes like have moments of more high action or more like supernatural elements and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there isn't a whole lot of that. There was a bit of it, I think, but
there's this weird balance where sometimes you spend like 3 episodes with nothing happens and just 2 people talk in the same room for the 3 episodes.
Yeah, that would also do it. To be honest,
it's a big like high flying like people's arms getting ripped off and all sorts of crazy supernatural fight nonsense.
Yeah, I think that like they downplay so much of it in that episode that.
Although also interesting, I noticed how much of the events that happened before the first episode that you know nothing about. It hints at all of them in the first episode as like those like fast cuts they do. It shows the entirety of the Spring Break and Golden Week arcs as like too fast to see little like cuts throughout the beginning of the first episode, which is interesting.
Yeah. So I guess that.
Do we have anything else to talk about?
Oh, well, we're going to talk a little bit about if we wanted to either pilot seasons or something of the sort. If anybody has any. Actually,
like shows that don't really start until after their first season, or like don't really take off until afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, the closest thing I knew was the Soul Eater stuff, where it's four episodes of introductions. I want to say that I know a show that does do that, though I haven't watched it anytime recently, and that's Supernatural, where they have a first season of just they fight monsters and kind of hint at things that are why they fight monsters, and trying to get to a goal of that happening. And eventually they kind of have more deep plots with a kind of antagonist of some sort after that. And they keep jumping.
I guess most shows that start with kind of like that issue of the week format will end up finding themselves in that same kind of situation where after like a season or so they have to start actually having a plot.
Oh, Bleach, that's another one. Where they do that, where it's a monster of the week thing that kind of hints at other things are going on. Or really, in the first episode, I guess they talk about that, where they handle kind of that there is more going on with the Shinigami stuff. And Rukia.
Then it got too much plot.
Then it just got overplotted. In nonsensical ways, but I like leading up to Grand Fisher in Bleach was actually really cool. Like I like a lot of that stuff where they kind of hint and talk about some elements of backstory and why people are why things are like this 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Explains a lot of his character and his friend, how he kind of builds quote unquote friendships in the real world. So
yeah.
Oh,
pretty much.
Anybody else have anything for season things?
I did not know.
So I know before, during the leading up to us talking about this, we were talking a little bit. I don't know if we discussed it formally for podcast stuff, but how anime doesn't actually usually doesn't do pilot episodes like cartoons and general TV shows will do sometimes. Instead, they usually, at least from Shonen Jump, it's usually they have they'll have like a bit of manga that is a pilot.
Yeah. So I noticed, and it seems to be a fairly common thing, and I want to research into it more because they kind of talk about in Bakuman also. That they'll have like competitions and stuff where they make a pilot essentially, and it's usually like double the size of a usual first chapter of a manga, and it's usually it is about the size of a short story. It has like characters that they set forth, and then they get it all it's pretty closed off, but kind of maybe has some space for like continuing on. And then usually if that's really well accepted, that will be picked up in the actual magazine itself, which then would get its own series, and then they would start. Usually the first few chapters are that pilot that's been reworked and changed and made slightly differently, and then they continue on the series from there. I remember reading the pilot for Naruto, and how there's a lot of similarities to it, but one of the bigger differences is Naruto had different goggles that he had goggles that he would wear instead of his headband, which he then also used in the first couple chapters before getting his headband in the actual series itself. And Kishimoto, the author, was saying like the reason why he switched over to the headband is because he didn't want to keep drawing those goggles every single time. And so like he liked the design of the goggles and all that, but he was like, I need to do something different. And so the ninja headband was what he did in order to change that. But also like Naruto was an actual kitsune rather than a child with a demon fox inside of him.
In the original?
In the pilot, that's what he was he was actually, and a lot of things in Japanese folklore is kitsune and tanuki. They would use leaves and stuff to transform things into other things, which they kind of still show off here and there in Naruto proper.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the shadow clones turn into logs whenever they get destroyed or whatever.
Right. And that's kind of a ninja thing, is dressing up logs to look like you. And so people get confused for a second. Gives you enough time to get out of there. I've been watching a lot of Witch Ninja by Gaijin Goomba. So I've been learning a lot about stuff through that. But yeah, he was an actual like fox spirit rather than a kid that,
with a spirit
had a fox spirit in him.
Gotcha.
And so that was one of the major differences. But he was still like a little troublemaker and stuff, and just wanted to find his place in the world. That was kind of a running thing for a long time, and that kind of got carried over in the actual series itself. But a lot of series in Shonen Jump, I don't know if it's the same for a bunch of other magazines and comics series. They're comic book publishers in Japan, but in Shonen Jump, many series tend to go through this trial process through a pilot of some kind beforehand, and then if people like it, then it can get picked up into an actual series. The exceptions to that is if you are already been proven to be like an author that has had a series going for a while, or has something going that they can be like, oh, okay, we don't need to have the trial process. We believe that you can make a product that people would actually want to read. And people like Akira Toriyama has had multiple series that he just like picked up and started and then ended after a while for various reasons, other than Dragon Ball. And then obviously Dragon Ball Super is still was the thing going for a long time. But he wasn't drawing that, he was just writing for it. And he had one of his understudies actually do the artwork for it. But that's an example of like an artist that can just come in and just be like, I want to start this new series, and like, okay, cool. You have a slot in the magazine to try out.
Yeah, what's the general idea? Does it sound remotely pitchable?
Yeah. Basically, it's like, does he have like a good start of a series that could work? But yeah, and then for anime though, you usually from that point, it's just, are they doing X well in the magazine?
Right.
Do we have a studio that's interested? So it's less on a pilot to pitch to get animation done. It's manga to animation, unless you are just a studio yourself and you're just like, we do what we want.
Like Trigger.
Yeah, basically. Trigger's like the exception. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
And also the light novel industry, which has its own kind of unique system these days for how things get made.
That's true.
There's the now extremely popular site. It's shortened to Naru, which is like, so you want to be a novelist, and just everyone writes everything on there. And if a publisher likes your story that already exists and already has a fan base, they're just like, hey, redo that, but for us, get money for it.
That's basically a lot of how I hear that the comic book industry is with web comics. They just get
picked up. That makes sense.
So it's pretty similar. Pretty easy. There isn't a really a pilot period for that. It's just they're making it. So So I think that should wrap up what we need to talk about, right?
Yeah, I think
so.
That's a pretty good point. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Jingles, on this weird podcast adventure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank anybody watching, listening. We're gonna try to post it on probably a couple places. I'll need to look into it. But yeah, and thanks for the
Jingles, you mentioned you have a podcast as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
People can look you up.
You want to plug?
Yep. On Anchor is where I upload it, but then Anchor then uploads it onto Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, a whole bunch of other podcasting websites. You can look it up. It's called Mythos Podcasts, where I go with my brother, my roommate, and my best friend Pie Man. And we just talk about a whole bunch of random stuff. The last episode, we talked about video games that you're not allowed to say bad things about, or else the internet will kill you. And we had a lot of fun, like just kind of thinking about that list and coming up with whatever we could come up with in that. And that was a lot of fun. The previous episode, we made a Star Wars fan fiction. It just came up with it on the spot. So if any of that kind of stuff interests you, please check it out. Mythos Podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of different places.
Yeah, I'll try to grab links from you, I guess, before posting it.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Whee! Okay, so...
No, you don't understand. He turned himself into a pickle.